everybody. Once again, this is Neuropa.
Take two. Neuropa. I love that one. That one's a fun one. And then we got Birds Aren't Even Real saying sick song, gonna need details and download link. I know we're gonna have to put out like a Neuropa music video because I could listen to this song for 2 hours, honestly. I could just nonstop. It's got a good vibe, you know. But we're here alone today. I love Stefan, and Stefan will be back at some point. You can't help it. You can't stop me. But at the same time, we all want to hear what Raph has to say. So we have the rest of the content from yesterday all set up. Not only that, and then we also showed off this awesome conversation that Raphael recorded in German and then used AI to translate into English. So we have perfect, completely perfect. I mean, they're in their own mode, thinking in their own words. And so I think this video comes out even better than the ones where we force Germans to speak English.
Yeah, and I want to glaze this guy again because I've been collaborating with him maybe for a year or something. I know him through a common friend who's also interested in, bioavailability of energy and so on. And again, of course, there's all these links below the show also for all different compounds. But again, you can just enter any of these compounds, do your own research, find your own local trusted supplier. This is research based on dog field microscopy studies, where you can actually see that when blood has apparently some issues, and then you use various of these compounds with someone qualified to assist you and help you on what to take, then after several months you can actually see a definite improvement. So that's definitely great, especially for anyone who may have had any types of issues with any types of jabs. Highly recommended to watch and check out. There's also other doctors talking about this. I think I brought up some American doctor or some other shows on previous shows where people sometimes talk about some similar compounds as well. But definitely highly recommended to check out.
All right. And then just also we showed the interview and we talked about this guy before, Dr. Reiner and Dr. Reiner Fulmish, and how he was getting in trouble for doing actual science, actual investigatory medicine to see what's really going on.
He basically was interviewing all of these doctors worldwide, literally. So although it was a, let's say, German show, but oftentimes they did it in English and they even had like translators and all of that. And it just basically seems like his quote unquote partners back then, his lawyers or lawyer friends, not friends anymore, basically tried to, I don't know, one up him or something. And it'd be one thing if it's only about some civil case proceeding or whatever, but they literally got him in jail. And I think he's in jail for a year now. And he even was more or less kidnapped from South America, from everything that I can understand, or like tricked into re-entering Germany. They scooped him up.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, he's been there, and this obvious, at least from all the interviews you get from independent observers, which is this video, you can tell that there's something very wrong, let's say. And it wouldn't be the first time, but it's just kind of sad. And what I wanted to bring up specifically is that Füllmich also interviewed Dr. Lanka, whom we'll get on in, get we'll talk about in the addendum to the last show. This is a section below. And Lanka is the one who did this control experiment on basic virology. And I was, of course, very closely listening to that particular uh, transmission, let's say. This thing was called Corona Ausschuss, so like Corona Committee, where they had all these interviews. One time they got on, I think it was Stefan Lanka with either, I think with Dr. Tom Cowan. Um, and you had also Dr. What's his name? A very famous German doctor there who was actually mainly responsible that the swine flu in Germany didn't become a big thing like the sea crisis did. So generally, someone where you would say, "Oh, you can trust this guy, or he knows what's up and he knows how to read statistics and all of that." So it was I forgot his name now. This German doctor, if you look up Corona Ausschuss, he will be right up front there. You had Dr. Rainer Füllmich, you had Dr. Viviane Fischer, who now seems to be, let's say, on the opposing side to Füllmich and may even have colluded with the state prosecutor to kind of get him in, which is, lowest bar, I can't even say. Yeah, exactly, here we are. So you mainly had these three, and they were interviewing Tom Cowan and Stefan Lanka. And of course, because I knew about Lanka's work, why I'll bring up in a little bit, or from where.
Are they really
And
calling it Session 237?
in
Wow. Kubrick.
yeah, well,
Nice.
yeah, that's just a recent one. I guess they're even still continuing, but of course without
Okay.
Fühl mich.
They're up to
Um,
2000.
but the point being that when they interviewed Lanka and Tom Cowan, who had their, let's say, criticism of germ theory and were presenting their case, it was curious because both Dr. Viviane Fischer and this famous German doctor, they were kind of like, oh, you're talking BS, whatever. And Rainer Füllmich, at least in that interview, actually was the one who was like, well, let's give these guys some space. We invited them. Let's actually try to understand what they say. But here you could really tell the cognitive dissonance or whatever problems the doctor and the other lawyer had, or whatever other agenda, I don't know, was kicking in full force. And they didn't even want to properly give them the space and the time to present their case and basically have people understand what's going on. We'll get into this in the addendum now as well, but just to explain what's going on there.
Epic. Cool. So yeah, you can check this out. You can check out the list right here, Raphael's website, comensi.at. Just to remind you, this is where we keep the logs for all of the data. And if you want to go deeper into any of the things we're looking at, every show that Raphael and I do, they're the Neuropa lists of every subject that we cover and some extra subjects that you might have missed. So make sure you go through here and check them out. You can learn about cockroach milk. It's pretty cool. And then also just a reminder, you can support us if you like to do that. Go to andreas.me, donate any which way you like. Buy a couple t-shirts for your fam. Get yourself the QR code or the Order of Melchizedek star. You're the only one who's going to know what it means, but people will come up to you and ask, I'm pretty sure, because they're cool shirts. You know what I mean? I actually like also the Exertus comic. I think that one should be, you got to actually make this comic. And then just to remind you, there's a new website, actlikeyouKnow.xyz, XYZ, and it has a sort of link tree to all of the links. You can do PayPal donations directly to Raphael, which is cool, and I highly recommend that. You can also go to the Odyssey backup channel, which is full of videos that are not always on YouTube. A lot of the YouTube videos are here, but also so are more videos because you can put things on Odyssey you can't elsewhere. And we love Odyssey, so we just want to give a little shout out to the Odyssey team. Product recommendations is also cool because we're going to start doing this where we put up things that we use ourselves. I think this is a good idea. We're associated with the IQ Tink. You can use the RAF26 or the Exertus code to get discounts from the garlic extract, which I give my father, which has helped him with his dementia. So I highly recommend.
Yeah, and to glaze that
We all
more,
take
and it's
garlic.
literally exactly. Yeah. I mean, this is one of the. I mean, I take a few more things, and also I saw Andreas is also deep into it. There's so many great things. I'll just recount one story because it literally happened today. This is not, how should I say, a ploy. It really happened. So I get up, and I'm like, oh, no, I'm getting a call, and it's my grandma. And for 2 years, I've been badgering her because I've been known about this and like putting it in front of her face, my whole family's face, you know. And there was only one, which is the wife of my great uncle. You'll actually see all of that in that video on the recommendations because that's like real testimonials from people I know, including Andreas. So anyways, been badgering my grandmother for 2 years, and then also told this wife of my great uncle, please, because she was the only one out of my family that actually started taking it and was like, oh, I'm actually feeling better. I have more energy. It's more fun and so on. Of course, I was so happy. And then I told her, please explain to my grandma what's going on. Tell her how to take it and all of that. Maybe then, there'll be a chance, let's say. And guess what? I almost can't believe it myself. A month later now, I'm getting a call from my grandma, and she's like, yeah, thank you so much. I'm so happy. I have joy eating again. And she literally
Totally.
said to me, I am alive again, you know? And I'm like, God, yeah, 2 years of badgering and all of that. But well, we got there, so, I'm very happy. And yeah, so that's why
It's
I'm
crazy
recommending
how
these
good it's
things.
crazy how good garlic can be for you. Like I take garlic now, and yeah, this garlic extract is really. I mean, it's hard to even impress upon you how serious it is, how much we love it. So I just wanted to recommend it. We're stoked that Dietmar's made this awesome garlic extract, and I remember one time I gave it to my brother and my dad and I. We got into an airplane and we walked in, And we took it right before we got on the plane, and there were these blonde girls sitting there, and they just all went like, "Oh," because the smell of garlic was insane. There's these three Croatian men that smell like, you know, we're hunting vampires basically. But there's new kinds of garlic extract that he makes that have orange, citrus, lemon, things like that, and they're bearable on your neighbors. But I think also
And the
more
thing
people would
is,
the better, you
I
know?
mean, the one thing is, of course, where does even this idea come from that garlic is supposed to be a bad smell? That's also like something cultural which should be investigated. Why they made it like this as a cultural
Yeah.
idea that, oh, it's so bad. There's so many other
Scandinavians,
smells that people could complain about. And also, it should be said, with this particular water-soluble thing, there is actually no indirect smell. So the only way you can is like literally when you take it and maybe for 1 minute. But if you would take a sip of coffee, it's gone. So it's not that
right?
it's, so bad or whatever. It's maybe just because they're very sensitive and were literally in
No, a
that
lot of people
moment
that
when
are
you were taking
super.
it.
I think a lot of people are sensitive, and it seems like Scandinavians had a culture that was against root vegetables. They didn't like garlic or onions and thought that was peasant food, and associated with magic, associated with witchcraft and things like that. So a lot of people actually just don't eat a lot of garlic, and they have, But if you have you can also get non-odorous garlic. There's all sorts of options if you're looking for it as a medicine. I think just if you take this spray on your tongue like a couple times, like once a day or a couple times a week or something like that, it has a huge change in your life and in your energy, which is probably worth doing. So look into the garlic, get the discount, take RAF for my promo code Exertus or RAF26. Get yourself, just try it out, see what you think. It's pretty great. I honestly, I highly just recommend it. Okay, and then so we've got through there. Then we went to addendum. Did we do addendum?
No, this is basically what I added on yesterday
Okay,
night to discuss some more things or just show a few more things. We're
okay,
not gonna get into this in detail, but just for anyone who maybe, didn't get the whole point
right.
yesterday or wants more information. Anyways, always the issue is even though we have 2 hours, it's only 2 hours. And even though I talk a lot, it's not enough. Even if I try to summarize everything, there's not enough time, unfortunately. So here, I was looking this up, but you can show it.
Right. We were
This
talking
is
yesterday
on,
about CIA AIDS and the HIV hoax, basically. And
yes, and what this is this is the original recording of the cytopathic effect control experiment. And actually, I noted down something on if we can play it if you want to, we could play it from minute 4 and only for like 1 minute, which is the conclusion of the thing. Um, from
okay,
minute four, I think.
let me get the
Yes.
audio
Thank you.
synced up
Andreas
here.
is
And
always so agile with doing this. It's amazing.
I
Props to
wish.
Andreas.
The sequencing and the quality of the RNA is extraordinary for our purpose. I received the results yesterday. Thereby, virology is disproved in the first step because we clearly demonstrate that the central effect, the dying of cells in the test tube, we can create in the same manner without infected material. And virologists should have made such a control experiment since 1954 that until today it is not documented that they did it. So, and this equating with this effect, cytopathic effect, CPE, and this is for the virologists the proof of a virus, and then they're calling their dying cell tissues an isolate, which then they offer on the market for 2,000 euros. And then they say, and in here, and this is the virus, and from that we can create a vaccine now. We can take the
Yeah, I
whole
think that's enough.
live vaccine.
So basically, anyone who wants to have the actual, results of that study which Dr. Lanka made, you can check it out there. I actually found this again on Archive. I couldn't find it anymore on Odyssey. So, but it's cool, it's great. The archive still exists and is online. And this is, like Lanka says, the control experiment which should have been done from the very start, but was conveniently omitted. And then you wonder about the scientific rigorousness of the supposed academic establishment if for decades and decades they start building on each other with papers and so on, but nobody ever cares to go back and be like, well, did we actually have proper controls? Does it actually really make any sense? I'm not gonna tell you now what to believe, but I'd encourage you to check it out because, of course, the whole sea crisis thing and any other related thing they will ever want to pull off is all contingent on omitting these controls. So I think it'd be great if everyone would wake up to this and be aware of it. And yeah, later you can still do a poll and see what people believe, but I think if everyone properly understand this, there would be a lot less prone to these type of, psyops, let's just say. You're muted, Andreas.
My bad. Yeah, no, highly recommend checking this out. And then also, here's the Virus of Alienation featuring Sadhguru, John Lennon, Aaron Russo from America, Freedom and Fashion, Yuri Bezmenov, and Robert O. Young and Alexander Dugin, our buddy.
So I had showed this before, I'm just adding it here again. I made this compilation like 2 years back. This is just different clips pulled together to give some type of a storyline, let's say, with pro and con in terms of the differing belief systems as to whether germ theory as it's presented to us is correct or whether maybe there is some issue with it. I think it may come across what I believe by watching it, but the idea was just to have something that's somewhat entertaining and also educational. You can find this on my channel, and I think it's a fun watch actually. I'm not sure if it's a good or a bad sign, but even anytime I rewatch it, I'm like, this is enjoyable. And you get differing viewpoints. You get Yuval Noah Harari to speak, and a few key points inserted to maybe have this idea go down in a smoother way, let's say, or understand something about it.
Epic. And then here's the
And
healthy
of
reset.
course,
Oh,
at the very end, I'll just have to mention there is Harari and Dugin, and of course the excerpts from Dugin are taken from Andreas's interview with Dugin, of course. Yeah, just with some added subtitles, even though it's already edited, and you have him basically fight with Harari in a virtual sense by me just putting these clips together. Not saying that either of them is 100% right or a saint, but it's interesting because it clearly shows the differentiation in viewpoints between those two guys.
exactly. Two completely opposing views that really you have to know them both to see like what we're wrestling the tightrope between both progressivism and romanticized traditionalism, which I mean, I wouldn't want to call it romanticized, but even Dugan kind of admits in the interview that he feels sometimes he might accidentally be romanticizing traditionalism. And I think that's important because we romanticize progressivism, obviously, and we imagine progress as an omega point that there's, like, why haven't they progressed as far as we have towards the obvious singular direction that there is to progress? Well, not everyone thinks that there's one direction to progress. So progressivism is a sort of fascism, a collective woke fascism, or it's like it is if it's not a symptom, then collectivist woke fascism might be a symptom of progressivism, which is, just thinking that you are headed towards the right direction, which is Lucifer thinking they're more right than Christ. So, interesting guy. I think Yuval Harari is interesting. I'd like to interview him at some point. And then here you have the healthy reset, which is an interesting, very short, it's only 15-minute clip here, but it's got a lot of
Yeah,
interesting information.
this is basically just summarizing an article I wrote still during the sea crisis, which again goes into this whole germ theory question and just outlining my view in a very simple and short fashion. I'm basically just reading what I wrote and insert a few clips.
Raph, is this your
Um,
manifesto? Oh my gosh.
well, I mean, maybe at least in terms of that particular discussion, it could well be, yeah.
Not bad. Not bad at all. And then, okay, so here's Stefan Lanka, who you mentioned earlier, talking with
Yeah,
Dr.
so
Cohen.
here just pointing out you have these interviews
Steph.
with Cohen and Lanka. You can check it out. But we will get to listen to a little bit of Cohen in a tiny bit. So this is just, to point out that there's interviews there, at least on Odyssey, where you can then, get a deeper understanding of what they're talking about, why they have this crazy idea and all of that. And Lanka actually has a long backstory in this whole virology topic as well. So he's not new to the scene. However, later in the show, we will discover why he's not being heralded in the US, just like some other doctors are now, as the great Maha team. We will get into that, and we will see, unfortunately, that also here there is a false dichotomy between the natural occurring, pangolin, Pokemon, whatever origin, and
Got it.
the
Come
Wuhan lab
on.
origin.
Yeah.
Pokemon. Yeah.
Which is also related somehow. So then Dr. Lanka, here's the video. Was a French interview, I think, or no, German.
This is one
Yeah.
in German, just so everyone has something to click at. Don't have to watch it. This is just to show that it exists. The next thing is also what I had shown before. This is one of the original sources where I learned about this. Dr.
Right.
Nancy Turner
AIDS,
Banks. She also,
Opium, Diamonds, and Empire, the deadly virus of international greed.
yeah, because she connected to economy, and at that point, maybe I wasn't that deep into the virology topic yet, but I could more jive and understand the economics part of it. And what she basically explained is that you have these systems set up, and then through money laundering and businesses which don't need to have exact accounting, you can actually even inflate stock market prices. So it's like a huge interconnected thing, which can make it more understandable why the germ theory idea is such a highly defended thing, and why you even have controlled opposition and so on popping up that's indirectly supporting it, because there's just so much money and power behind that idea. It is absolutely incredible. And it wouldn't be such a big deal if it wouldn't be to the detriment of the people's wealth and health. And that's why I keep harping on that topic. Yeah, then even here you have young Lanka. This have maybe been, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, or whenever the whole HI topic started popping up. Of course, there's many other doctors, also American doctors from back then, that were, let's say, ringing the alarm. But here just to show Lanka is not new to the game, but he's been onto this topic for quite some time. And from what I understand, he even won a court case in Germany related to the measles virus, if I recount this correctly now. I just know it was a very big deal. And yeah, this is a
That's the big
recurring
thing
thing.
right now. Obviously, in America, they're saying there's measles outbreaks. That's the new.
Seriously.
Yeah, have you not seen that? Measles. If I type in measles right now and you go to news, you're going to hear Texas measles outbreak nears 100 cases. CDC reports five-fold increase in measles cases from last week. Are you protected? Here's what the CDC says about measles. CNN, what CNN wants you to know about measles. So, those are the sources. You can really trust those guys about stuff. Anyway, so yeah, measles. Then Carrie Mullis about Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We could even listen to this if we want to.
Yeah,
I
okay,
don't
it's
know.
only
It's
short.
just, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So Carrie Mullis is
Oh,
the inventor of the PCR test,
we're
which
doing the
everyone has
weirdest
been
reaction
using.
show. No one else does reaction shows like this.
About humanity that wants to go to all the details and stuff and listen. These guys like Fauci get up there and start talking. He doesn't know anything really about anything, and I'd say that to his face. Nothing. The man thinks you can take a blood sample and stick it in an electron microscope, and if it's got a virus in there, you'll know it. He doesn't understand electron microscopy, and he doesn't understand
Right.
medicine,
He's
and
right.
he should not be in a position that he's in.
He's so right.
Most of those guys up there on the top are just total administrative people, and they don't know anything about what's going on the bottom. Those guys have got an agenda, which is not what we would like them to have, being that we pay for them to take care of our health in some way. They've got a personal kind of agenda. They make up their own rules as they go. They change them when they want to, and they smugly, like Tony Fauci, does not mind going on television in front of the people that pay his salary and lie directly into the camera. You can't expect the sheep to really respect the best and the brightest. They don't know the difference, really. I mean, I like humans. Don't get me wrong, but basically, the vast majority of them do not possess the ability to judge who is and who isn't a really good scientist. I mean, that's a problem. That's a main problem actually with science, I'd say, in this century, because science is being judged by people. Funding is being done by people who don't understand it. Okay, who do we trust? Fauci? Fauci doesn't know enough to, if Fauci wants to get on television with somebody who knows a little bit about this stuff and debate him, he could easily do it because he's been asked. I mean, I've had a lot of people, president of the University of South Carolina, ask Fauci if he'd come down there and debate me on the stage in front of the student body, because I wanted somebody who was from the other side to come down there and balance because I felt like, well, these guys can listen to me, but I need to have somebody else down here that's going to tell me the other side. But Fauci didn't want to do it.
PCR to estimate all these supposed free viral RNAs that may or may not be there.
I think misuse PCR is not quite. I don't think you can misuse PCR. The results, the interpretation of it. See, if you can say, if they could find this virus in you at all, and with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? I mean, because if you can amplify one single molecule up to something that you can really measure, which PCR can do, then there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body, okay? So that could be thought of as a misuse of it, just to claim that it's meaningful. It allows you to take a very minuscule amount of anything and make it measurable, and then talk about it in meetings and stuff like it is important. See, that's not a misuse, that's just sort of a misinterpretation. It doesn't tell you that you're sick, and it doesn't tell you that the thing you ended up with really was going to hurt you or anything like that.
Yeah. Kerry Mullis pissed everyone off because he was a spiritualist from rural North Carolina. He passed away recently. Not too recently, but a few years ago. And in 84, as a senior scientist of Cetus Group in the Berkeley Biotech Company.
Do you know he passed away just before the sea crisis went loose, like half a year or 9 months prior?
Right. And what's interesting is he talks about spirituality a lot. Like, he has a good quote: "Science, like nothing else amongst the institutions of mankind, grows like a weed every year. Art is the subject to arbitrary fashion," kind of talking about social Darwinism, "and religion is inwardly focused and driven only to sustain itself. Laws shudder between freeing us and enslaving us." So, I mean, that kind of pissed off everybody who could read, because it's like saying that scientists are useless. Religious people need to be more scientific. Scientific people need to be more religious. We need to look at spirit. I mean, everything he said, I really liked the guy. I was a big fan of the guy. I was pretty into PCR. I had an open source PCR kit made out of a Mr. Coffee in 2012. We used to go around Los Altos doing samples of sushi to see what kind of fish they were using. I mean, there are definitely reasons that the PCR test is cool. And it's awesome that the guy who made it was like, whoa, slow down. You can't just use this to interpret data. You need to look at the holistic human body if you're going to do this. He was really saying that a lot. He's like, you can't just look at one molecule, because there's going to be all kinds. It's amazing how few things really exist and how many of them are going to be found in every organism, and how they'll be in every disease will use healthy parts, right? That's a big, especially if you're talking about like tumors and things like that, they're using healthy parts a lot of the time. So you can't just say, oh, well, this is an unhealthy part. No, it's a system of organization that is working against the greater common goal of the organism, which is, as Albert Schweitzer says, to stay alive, right? There's a sort of idea that, do you value life? Do you want to keep living? Well, that's what unites us, right? And so the same thing, that's what unites us with tumors. Tumors want to keep on living. They're killing themselves because they don't live in a balance with the rest of the organism. I know that sounds hippie, but that's science, man. That's the way it is. So highly recommend checking out Kerry Mullis. And this is an interesting article. The Intolerable Genius, Berkeley's most controversial Nobel laureate, written December 12th, 2019, right? This is right before COVID was happening, when they were already trying to smear him and say, just because he invented a cool machine doesn't mean you have to like care what he has to say. You do, though. You do. So yeah, pay attention to Kerry Mullis. Listen to this guy. He was an interesting man. Rest in peace. Also, let's pull up the video with Dr. Cohen looking at the future. Oh, did I show you that last page? Did you even see this? This is what I was trying to tell you about.
Yes.
Intolerable
We
Genius.
saw it, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
sure.
Thank you, yes. That's
Cool.
great.
Dr. Thomas Cohen.
Yeah, so what we got here is we'll try to keep it short, but I want to show two brief segments. So one would be from minute 15 and 20 seconds, and we played maybe for 3, 4 minutes, and then another 2 minute segment. I hope this summarizes it well enough to get
Rich,
the point across. 15 minutes, 20 seconds.
Oh, 15 minutes. Sorry. 15.
status, that's what we're using as the current vaccines. Now, I thought then it would be interesting to take a look at obviously the history of the leadership of the Make America Healthy movement and see what we can learn from that. Like what have they done as far as the science around vaccines and viruses and virology? And here we find something very interesting, which I've also talked about many times, that if you look into the role of the leadership of the MAHA movement as regards to COVID, so that's a huge part of this Make America Healthy initiative. And obviously we're talking about people like Kennedy and Bigtree and Cole and Malone and Mickey Willis, Mercola, and a whole lot of other people, Kirsch, people that we all know. So what was their role in COVID? And I think there are probably a number of roles, but the one that I want to focus on is their role in the engineered virus lab leak story. And again, I've been over this so many times, everybody's probably sick of hearing it, but I think it's worth repeating because the same people who are the leadership of this MAHA movement were the people who brought us this lab leak gain of function story. So what is the
Yeah, I
gain
think
of function
that's
story?
the main
So it's
point.
very interesting.
And then we can go to minute 30 and 50 seconds and listen for 2 minutes. Minute 30 and 50 seconds.
Way to get rid of the whole vaccine narrative and industry is to simply present the factual, easy to understand evidence that these diseases have specific separate entities don't exist. That's number one. And the viruses that are said to cause them have never been shown to exist either. Then there is obviously no reason for vaccines. Now, if you take another way, which is why I showed the clip from Mike, and you say, okay, what we want, which is what we're hearing, is we are pro-vaccine and we want safer vaccine based on real scientific studies. So first of all, I question the ability of the leadership to monitor or organize or create real scientific studies because they certainly didn't do that with COVID. Not at
Yeah,
all.
I think that's good.
They failed to.
Yeah, so there you have it, guys. I can't condense it any more than that. Don't believe me, don't believe this guy, but check out the things and see what ultimately makes more sense, both with whatever statistics you may find, with your own environment, with your own body. Yeah.
And then Jane, the master of the Burgermeister.
Oh yes, and here, this is just a shout out to Christel, who is the one who's being interviewed here. So Jane Bürgermeister, I'm not sure she kind of vanished or whatever, but the dear lady on the left-hand side, Christel Meyer, she actually was the one who many years back I was attending some symposium on Austrian economics, actually of all things, which may also be another Jesuit ploy, by the way, because at least back then when I was checking out the university, Ludwig van Mises University, they had some official Jesuits on their board, so that made also like all my bells ring. But anyways, here you have Christel Meyer briefly explaining her view on HIV, and I have met her many years ago. We did some interviews, And also, I've spoken to her privately quite a lot, and she was the one who basically helped me to get a grip on, understanding what is this HIV thing? Why do some people claim this or claim that? How can you correlate it? Also, why were particular target groups affected the most in the beginning? And she really has very good explanations for this, much of which can also be found in this book, which I showed earlier, or this presentation, AIDS, Opium, Diamonds, and Empire. It's definitely a recommended book, which also mentions these things and also mentions the medical side of it. So yeah, just a shout out to her for being amazing. And even back then, there were conferences, and from what I heard, even she had trouble, I think, insofar as to being relegated off the stage or off the
Wow.
premises and so on, basically just because she was speaking up, to all these scientist guys or whatever, and having an unpopular opinion, which I think, I guess, at least in hindsight, for everyone looking at it, will appear more and more reasonable than whatever has presented since ever in the mainstream. And again, remind ourselves, also Fauci already was at the helm during the whole HIV thing. So, what to say?
I don't know if this is completely related, but someone just said, why don't they just get all the chemistry recipes from the Egyptian High Priest Archive? Oh, wait. Well, that's kind of funny because you're talking about the Vatican library having all these secrets. And in terms of Jesuits and Freemasons in Austria, did teenage Mozart really transcribe Allegri's Misery after hearing it once in the Vatican? Did you know this story that there was a song that had been played for centuries that no one was allowed to play anywhere else in the Vatican? There's only one copy of it written down in the Vatican. And Mozart allegedly at 14 years old was brought in, heard it, and transcribed it from memory, and then made it available to everyone. This was like the Linux of Vatican music, right? He made an open sourced the secret song of the Vatican, and I feel like that's kind of, I don't know. It's a cute story. I'm not sure that's really related, but I like it.
Yeah, nice story. Original Linus Torvalds, maybe.
Yeah, right. Okay, now we're under the world order. I'm gonna pull up some of these really quickly. Got PayPal Mafia.
Yeah, so here some of these things relate back. And, guys, I wish I could be cheering on the new administration in the US and be like, yeah, Maha, yeah, it's so great and so on. But it's not. And by now, I don't buy that line anymore that either they're too incompetent or whatever. If someone with comparatively no resources can figure these things out, you cannot possibly tell me that these high up guys don't know what's going on. And I'll even may bring testimony soon in terms of an interview where we can understand that yes, the administration has been informed of all kinds of things and simply has chosen not to act on it. And I get it with politics, and also, I want to see the 7D chess, but by now I'm sorry, I'm over it, right? So it's gone on too long, and I don't see the results. I don't see the real fundamental changes. And also have to say, I don't care about cutting US aids of whatever 5%. Look at the military budget spending, look at the NASA spending, look at the pandemic planning office and all of these things. It's a distraction, it's a diversion. It is a bad joke, unfortunately, if you understand any of the underlying science and, let's say, real crossroads. You can see they're only pretending now to go into a different way with some, outside ornamentation, but fundamentally, it doesn't seem as if anybody's really switching course. So much for the double-headed eagle and the two wings, and yeah.
But there's still hope, right? Yeah. No. So
Yeah,
then,
yeah, there's always hope, but the hope is with you guys and not
yeah.
with anybody up there. I think
Is
it's
this
really
the?
time to let go of that.
Isn't this the guy? He like did Chinese videos, and then like he's bad. Now he doesn't have like you can't. I never see his videos anymore. Look, he's unsubscribed. Look at that. That's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh
So
my
here,
god.
basically, I briefly brought this up last show at the end. So this guy, and also, we can argue about his and his friend's backstory, which is also strange, but the
Yeah.
point
He's a bit
stands that
narcissistic.
that
Intense.
they've been doing these, China videos, and their shtick is like anti-CCP, anti-China. Also here, I'm all for differentiated views. That's not the point. But the point is that they were quite successful, and then they noticed a very steep drop in their numbers.
Yeah,
And what
like
they
10x.
did then is they put up some thumbnails, and it's curious because it was only the thumbnails. So I'm wondering, like, how exact is this AI really? And in the thumbnails, they appeared to denigrate the US or be like, oh my God, America or something like that. They still stuck to their topics, but the thumbnails that were anti-US again got them very good reach, while the usual thumbnails, which would be anti-CCP or whatever, got very low reach or were more or less shadow banned. And he even said you can verify this through private tab on through a browser, like if you're not logged in, so you can get a unmodified feed, or let's say only localized to your state location or whatever it is. And funnily enough, as I mentioned, but I didn't watch it yet, even Asmongold, of all people, reacted to this and brought this to the forefront. Basically, the question, why does YouTube seem to prefer pro CCP content? What's the whole deal here? And to me,
Anti-US content, yeah.
yes, yes.
Because America's still awesome. Whether or not people think it's perfect, I agree. But like, there's a reason why Mark Zuckerberg was saying that it's actually like other countries were making it even harder to participate. I mean, all the Americans did was made them hide a Hunter Biden laptop story. Have you seen what they did in Mozambique? Have you seen what they've done? I mean, it's crazy.
No, I
Well,
don't know about Mozambique. Well, that's
gay
why,
tap dancing
I
and
don't know.
voluntary circumcisions, bro. It was a wild culture, CIA making
Oh,
Sesame
man.
Street, controlling puppets all around the world, which isn't anything new.
hmm
Oh wait, Secret History of Feminism by Kyle.
Yeah, this is also something that I bring up 1, 2 segments in this virus of alienation, clip documentary here, just because I was briefly putting in a search and was like, oh, there's some new content regarding this. Just again, feminism, something to look
She looks
into.
like she knows a lot about feminism.
He looks like it, or she?
No, she does.
Yeah. So, yeah, just some basic information. People can check it out if they want to. The main
What?
point being
Yeah.
what Aaron Rousseau actually relates, which I put into the Virus of Alienation mini documentary, is he was talking with Nick Rockefeller, and Nick Rockefeller asked Aaron Rousseau, well, what do you think communism, sorry, communism. Well,
Hello? Your audio went funny. Hello?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
1,
you're
2,
good.
3.
You're
Yes.
good now.
All right. So basically, Nick Rockefeller asking Aaron Rousseau, what do you think feminism was for? And Aaron Rousseau said, well, women's rights and liberties and so on and all the good stuff. And Nick Rockefeller literally told him, oh, well, Aaron, you're an idiot. And Aaron's like, why am I an idiot? And Nick Rockefeller says, well, we did that. And why? Because it takes away the children from the family. We get to educate them. We get double the taxes from the women having to work. And by now, the memes have become popular enough, which clearly show you, at least in the US or in industrialized countries, 40 years ago, with a not highly skilled salary, you could have a wife and 2 children and a house. And then, have these memes. I'm sure you saw it, right? And then it goes 10 years later, they have a smaller house. 10 years later, they only have maybe one child and they rent a place in the city. And then 10 years later, they have 2 dogs and, the girl is a feminist and the guy is, I don't know. I don't know what the guy is, but, so
Also,
this,
if you haven't
yes.
seen America Freedom to Fascism, the Aaron Russo documentary on income tax and how it's illegal, I highly recommend it. He made it right before he died, which think about that however you want. But he interviewed some pretty important people and some on the street Americans and asked them about why they pay income tax and asked, in IRS agents to
Oh,
go up and
so this should be
explain.
coming back now, at least even with Trump, no? Shouldn't he be promoting this guy now that he wants, or he
I think so.
pretends he
Well,
wants to stop the IRS or whatever, which was,
it
questionable
makes
from the
sense.
first place?
He was a friend of the Rockefellers, but then he ended up working against the Rockefellers, and he was a New Yorker, so I can totally see Trump being aware of Rousseau, and he made Trading Places, which definitely is a kind of movie I think Trump would have loved. Trump seems to be the kind of guy who loves a movie about meritocracy. If you've seen Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy as Dan Aykroyd's a rich white man. Here, let's find the trailer for that. If you haven't seen Trading Places, is an important movie to see, where these two wealthy aristocratic brothers make a bet that they can turn a homeless, conniving black man, which they're highly racist against, into a Wall Street executive just overnight. Like it's just a nature versus nurture, and that they can take the man who has been, you know, the white Wall Street executive and put PCP in his pocket, have him arrested, and turn him into a conniving homeless street thug instantly. That it's just your environment which defines you. And they make this
No
bet to
one dares say
destroy
this
this
is
man,
based on real CIA operations.
right? And they one day he wakes up and everyone he knows won't talk to him anymore, you know, because he's embarrassed himself in this social status, which is hard to maintain your social status in. Social status in. So they make this bet and destroy this man's life over $1. Right, that's the idea of this amazing. I highly recommend watching Trading Places if you haven't seen it. And also the movie that he made, you know, he ended up famous enough to make this documentary, America, Freedom to Fascism. And I don't know if it killed him or not, but he sure did talk to the right people. This is an incredible, incredible documentary. And please, to this day, after seeing this, 20 years ago now, to this day, I'm waiting for someone to show me the law. Show me the law that says you have to pay income tax. There's a law that says if you do, you have to be honest on your papers. But there's no law, as far as has been expressed or shown, that you have to pay your income tax. It's actually unconstitutional except for the 16th Amendment. And the 16th Amendment was never appropriately signed and ratified because you didn't have all of the states after the Civil War fully admitted yet. So states that should have been considered states weren't allowed to vote against this. And they use this as an opportunity to take all of the wealth from all of the citizens in the South. That was the original plan. And from there, they expanded it to take all the wealth out of all the citizens to keep them living in subjugation. I mean, this is exactly how the world's worked ever since. And they'll tell you, you know, paying income tax isn't only your right, it's your privilege, which is just what's even happening. A bunch of people from this documentary, including IRS agents, were arrested for not breaking the law per se, but for not for technically giving tax advice without a license or something like that. They had to figure out some workaround to destroy these people's lives, but they did. So I highly recommend checking it out. I met a few people involved with this when the film first came out, and they were bringing it around. Aaron Russo brought it to Santa Cruz, and so I was a pretty early Ron Paul supporter at the time. So yeah, just check out America, Freedom to Fascism. And then here's the General Motors streetcar conspiracy on Wikipedia.
This is just something I randomly found, which I'm sure you know more about than I do. I just thought it's kind of fun. So this is
The end of
basically
train.
about removing, I guess, tram lines and all of
Yeah.
that, which even in the old world research, you know, we find these strangely, I guess, at least from 1900 or whatever. Also, of course, along with the train tracks, raising the question since when they actually existed or not. And then General Motors basically conspiring to push for the automobile and have all of these things removed, which may be more like maybe potentially cheap public utilities in favor of the, I want to say, you know, Mad Max road style that you have in America now, which I guess in a way would be great. Just recently, have you heard about this Zimbabwean inventor who now claims he has a device which can let your car run free or basically without fuel? Let's see, I'm gonna yeah, exactly. So of course the first thing you see is that it's not real.
Well, by
Zimbabwean,
the Associated Press, though, and I mean the Associated Press is not real. So you know the
weren't
fact that
they,
they wrote an article.
wasn't AP switching places with the Pfizer CEO during that time? So
You can't
one
trust.
thing,
Who are you gonna trust, Zimbabweans or Associated Press? That's a tightrope. I
yeah, I
like to
don't
say
think that's what the car really looks like.
that would be
But
cool
so
though. I don't think that's what
one
he looks like, but I don't think
one
that's what
thing I put
Zimbabwe
in the
looks.
private chat is an older video where he claims he built a TV, and you can see the back of the TV as well. There's more recent videos where you can see him with the car, and once you have his name, it's easy to find. However, what I find questionable, so I think also apparently, supposedly he got poisoned when he went to the US a few years back. Big
Wow.
surprise. And then supposedly he made some deal with the Chinese to produce what he's now producing, which is a module not for a TV but for a car. And there's also a demonstration video about this on the internet. However, he's also, because he was unable to get a patent, wonder why, he created a self-destruction mechanism, whereas if you tamper with the device, it's somehow going to let off a small explosion, which supposedly is not going to hurt anyone but destroy the device. I think it's kind of strange because, on the one hand, do you really believe that there will be no one who will use some advanced tech to disable your detonator in some way, shape, or form? Number one. And number two, do you really believe yourself to have a very long life expectancy if you want to bring this out full force and you don't open sources and you know the papers or the actual technology is only accessible to a select few? All I can say is I would not want to be in this situation one of the people who has hold of this technology. I
Right.
would not want that. So I think that's a bit strange, but yeah.
Here's a user's guide to restructuring the global trading system by Hudson Bay
Yes.
Capital.
This was pointed out through chat at some point. I haven't really looked through it, but someone says this can be interesting. I thought maybe we want to take a look at it, but also we don't really have to. But supposedly this is more like a high level plan as to what is actually, what's going on or what certain forces are ploying, let's say, or plotting.
Using tariffs to help states not go bankrupt as corporations are exploiting them. Interesting. And then here's Yanis Varoufakis on Palestine.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So he's both talking here about Palestine, and in the next video he's talking about the European Union. He's got some interesting views. It's interesting, anyone who doesn't know Yanis Varoufakis, he was the finance minister under Alexis Tsipras for Greece. This was in about 2008 when the economic crisis hit Europe as well. And back then I just found it kind of strange, like why do they throw Greece in the ditch, which officially at least is literally the birthplace of democracy, right? In official mainstream timeline. I was like, why are they not nice to them at all? What's going on? From what I understand, even until now, there is bad effects for Greece in general. From Greek friends that I have, they also kind of allude to me that Greece is a little bit backwards and in
Yeah.
various ways.
Isn't it allegedly the lowest living standard in the EU? I think that's the.
I wouldn't be surprised, but it's pretty obvious that what they did was, highly unfair and highly crazy. Varoufakis then
Yeah.
exited the government. I'm not sure if he's like completely trustworthy, but there's a few interesting things he says. And then later Tsipras, the prime
Israel.
minister, still made some, strange deal with the EU and most likely, just sold out his own citizens. It was about the whole banking thing, and I think they were just trying to look for a scapegoat or something and how to restructure the thing, while at the same time, I mean, I don't even know what these guys are up to. Like, in terms of ultimate goal, how can you make the biggest mess? Yet another time they succeeded. The other thing is interesting with the 6 trillion, because here he claims that a lot of money was being printed after 2008, obviously, to keep the fiat system running.
They bought their own
And
shares. Yeah.
in the US and maybe also China or other places, they actually invested the money. However, in Europe, they just gave it to the banks. The banks did not really have incentive to properly lend it out. So now Europe basically is 20 years behind in industrial and technological development because they got no access to funds.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. Just like this hyperinflation, but not letting anyone have access to it, except so that way you can control other states because no nation has a GDP comparable to the hyperinflation. So you can just walk into a country and destroy their economy by putting in or pulling out as much money as they already have in it in circulation in a day or a year. Here's nations conspire and a call for uprising. It's a rigged game of risk. The 10 Kingdoms plan is being carried out in plain sight for all to see.
Yeah, so also here, I mean, this is just different clips and the guy commenting on it. What I find interesting about this and the line of thought, which I'm also, how should I say, prone to believing, is that there is no real conflict between the US and whoever else. I mean, on some levels, on certain, very certain levels, there might be. That's something to discuss with David Ewing Jr. But at least on a superficial level, it very much appears like a planned game of chess, how to say. And certain moves are being made. And what's highly interesting, which I actually had brought up before and was coming up here later, so after I had found it initially, is this Club of Rome world map, which is the next thing. And the whole idea here being that, again, they are playing out some biblical game or whatever, establishing these kingdoms. There's not actually real, on the highest level at least. I mean, it's both and, let's say, or and or however you would say it. While there may be some power factions that are deciding upon who's going to be the Moshiach or whatever, at least on a superficial political stage, it very much appears as if they're all just actors, and when the time is right, certain moves and certain deals are being made, and then different superficial political actors like Trump can say, oh, look, I'm so great, this and that, but it's actually only because on an even higher level, certain agreements were made, certain allegiances are made, certain scripts are agreed upon, and they are simply being played out. So anybody who's interested in that line of thought, definitely worth checking out Nations Conspire. He's one of the guys who repeatedly gets his channels deleted. Doesn't mean that he's correct, but at least means he's uncomfortable enough. I think this guy by now has made 5 or 10 different channels and is always rotating his channels because they always get deleted. So it makes you also wonder why does he have to be deleted, right? Yeah.
Wow. Oh, Canada. Oh, man, the Club of Rome, we should look at that. So here's the 10 kingdoms of the world concept that he's talking about right here. So here's the 10 kingdoms: North America, Europe, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Russia, the Slavic nations, South and Central America, North Africa, Middle East, Central Africa, Central East Asia, Southeast Asia, and India, as well as China. These are the 10 kingdoms of the world.
What I always think of is Command and Conquer, if you're familiar with the game series. And already in the 1990s or early 2000s, you had these strange alliances, I think, like literally, you know, Russia with China against the US or against the supposed free world and all of that. And yeah, through time, it appears more and more as if these scripts are actually being played out and these alliances being forged. Not necessarily entirely organic, but again, just to follow a certain script. And the sad thing is, you know, I wouldn't mind all these people, they can fight each other, all of that. But basically, you know, speaking of cage matches or whatever, just put all of those high-level actors and whoever is behind them, and they should fence it out this way and not basically enlist millions upon millions of people through nations and brainwashing and then have them fight and be sacrificed for nothing, basically, or only for the narcissistic, egomaniacal ideas that some of these guys at the very, very top, which we don't get to see, seem to be suffering from. Let me call it like that.
Yeah, right. His Truth, My Voice. This is the page that comes from. If you're looking for more information from the 10 kingdoms, from this old conspiracy lady, it looks like, which sounds cool. And then here's what tariffs are really all about. Inflation you may not be able to survive. Should we listen to this?
If you want, this is just a random guy who's uploading something, but I thought his statement was interesting.
Listen up, people. Our country is in serious national debt. And Trump sent $1 billion days ago to Israel so that they could have these killer dozers armored to remove all the rubble. But guess who's paying for it? You are. You are the slave. How's he getting the money? This is why he is using tariffs. The tariffs were supposed to pay off the national debt. No. He planned this long ago. He knew what he was doing. He has his criminal thugs, got everything laid out. You are the slave, America. And until you do something to stop it, you're going to continue to go downhill. You're going to continue to see your neighborhoods go straight to shit. You're going to continue to see nobody in the United States, anytime there's a disaster, ever get their communities restored. And we've already seen that. Plenty of that. But yet, he's focused on expanding Israel, building his Mar-a-Lago in Gaza, putting in resorts, fine housing. Who's paying for that? You are, with tariffs.
Well, I mean, that's not true at all, though. So, like, just really quickly, Congress put on hold the 1 billion arms sale.
Oh,
Let me just
interesting.
explain. And also, it's like there is a plan to do more. Like, so basically, Trump is moving to bypass the Congress and send 8 billion to Israel. So I'm not denying that the numbers. It's actually 8 times more, but it's a loan, and it's actually not a loan. Actually, I'm sorry. This is a sale. So what it is when they say send 8 billion in arms, what they're saying is Israel will pay 8 billion to the US for $8 billion worth of weapons, which we won't
Well, I
sell to
just
other
I just
countries but our
wonder
allies.
where Israel got the money from originally.
Well, I mean, they're pretty good with money. I'm sorry, I had to go there. I had to. No, but there really is a lot of hyperinflation, and you know what? You want to look at a company like Apple that couldn't do tax write-offs in the United States, so they built huge factory, labs in Tel Aviv, in Israel. I mean, Yosemite, right? Apple, Mac OS X, Yosemite, right? Like Yosemite was made in Tel Aviv for the most part. A lot of Apple's best programmers, and they're putting as much money as they can into Israel because it's a lower tax rate than bringing your money back home, right? So Apple has to have overseas as big of a company as they can. How big of a company should they have overseas? As big as it has to be to not be in the United States. So Israel's always been a money partner for the United States. We know this. We got film producing and tech, and no one seems to get so upset about the Saudi Arabians owning 20% of Twitter or something like that. But now that Israel has actually made enough money that they can buy weapons, and hey, we're doing a weapons trade is the other thing. So we want the Iron Dome defense system, so that if any rockets ever shot towards the Earth, we have infrared cameras and drones that pick it up and shoot them out of the sky or guide them out of the sky before they hit the United States. Well, Israel has that technology. We have all kinds of other technology. And I think there's also something to be said about the United States supplying technology, because then we know what people have and we know how to use it and we know how to disable it. So there's probably a little bit more going on. I don't want to like completely cut that guy off, but just it's not the way he's presenting it.
No, it's
It's not
fine.
tariffs are costing American citizens, aren't tariffs aren't going to Israel directly. That's not accurate.
Well, good. Thank you for the pushbacks. The people can check it out. I think it was an interesting take. But we can
Yeah.
just go on. We don't need to listen to all of it because also we still got some stuff left and it all ties together in a sense.
The
So
South African oligarch surrounding Trump. I love this thing because Trump spent his earliest part of his career saying, as a politician, he's like, America, how could we have an African running our country? And now he's got Elon Musk. It's like the dude is incredible. Like, I honestly, you got to give him credit. That's pretty funny.
he's definitely one of the, if not the best political actor that I'm aware of. I'll definitely give him that.
George Bush was really good. I think he's
Right.
underrated in a
Of
lot of
course.
ways. Yeah,
Of
I
course.
think every one of them. If you really think about it, like the characters they make are so unique. Like Al Gore is such an interesting character. He's like a straight man comic. And I don't know. You got to give him credit where credit's due. The other one I like is Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin was hysterical. She was able to convince people that she was just this like silly little lady in Alaska. I think they're underrated. But okay. So here's this guy, Democracy Now! He's put out this video
And just
talking
very
about
briefly, because someone's mentioning Janus, and it's always like a flimsy evidence for this, but I recently saw somewhere that Janus actually may be like the European version of Apollo. And if
Mm,
there's only anything to it, then that would be absolutely correct. We know that, well, Trump is an Apollo effigy, as I like to call it. So about this video, everyone who knows the PayPal Mafia knows about their backstory. These guys didn't come up randomly, plans if I ever saw one. But the funny thing, of course, here is, well, then you have this controlled opposition, because just look at Democracy Now! You can look at their funding. They are funded, I believe, I don't want to say the wrong one now, if it's Ford or some other type of, important family foundation that's literally funneling money into them.
but
And
she's
also,
got that terrifying NPR witch face.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
also you can look, which I actually did, look at their official statements, and you will see that for whatever they're doing there, they're getting paid a lot of money. Even this lady and so on, like
Clearly.
they're living a very good life on this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Ugh,
COINTELPRO everywhere you turn.
don't eat babies. All right, and then Elon Musk, the fraudster, tried to destroy America. Well, okay, so
Yes.
a guy does a little bit of ketamine, and then he hires some high schoolers, and what do you want? What do you want? It's America.
So I just want to shout out this channel for anyone who wants to see, whatever is potentially not so great about Musk. This guy, Thunderfoot, actually has made a whole YouTube career on criticizing Musk for years. And all I can say is the comments are becoming funnier by the day because, of course, as Musk is more in the limelight, more issues also pop up. I think he's also brought up this idea, where's the Tesla Roadster? Where's the Hyperloop? It's now a garage or whatever, or a parking lot. How many promises were made? How many were broken? How much how much of a psyop can it be? And it's one of the biggest and grandest and most amazing. Just like now with Doge, while on the one hand I can understand everyone being like, yeah, finally some efficiency and so on, but then I'm just asking you, look where they don't want you to look and look at all the things, whatever arms deals and AI and smart city advances, controlled demolitions and so on, that will just go on just like before. And it doesn't matter whether or not you remove the red 50 dye from your food supply, if then you turn all the deer into zombies, as we discussed on part one of this show,
Oh,
just as
that's
one
right.
example.
I also should say Trump did move Musk into, or Musk chose to live at the Mar-a-Lago 2000 a night resort room. So he's living with Trump, essentially at the new
Right.
government in Florida. And that's a fascinating turn of events. You can look at that however you want. I like the quote, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. The way that Trump um, veins so much niceness about Elon Musk. I don't know. I
Yes.
feel like this is exactly what Trump did the first time with people that he didn't know he could trust. And he's like, well, if I can't trust them, I better keep my eye on them all the time. I could be wrong. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, I also heard that idea that in the mid-run, even though he's glazing Musk all the time, he may actually plan to, how should I
Yeah.
say, drop him in a bad way,
Have you guys
ultimately.
watched? Have you watched The Apprentice? Like, you got to see. Like, what he'll do is he'll compliment
You're
people until they get
fired.
comfortable. Yeah. Well, the first 3 weeks before they get fired, he builds them up so they can get soft, relax,
Ah,
and
mm-hmm,
slip up. And if they slip up
mm-hmm.
because they're too comfortable, then they're fired, and they're fired quickly. I think that could happen with Elon Musk, but Elon Musk probably has data. I think that's another thing. There's probably when you have that much data, you have that much control over it. You got him by the balls, bro. Total information control, tit on the
Yeah,
motherboard.
so this guy, has been going on for quite some time, dollar vigilante, also not telling anybody to trust him, but I think this outline, I listened to the whole of it, is quite interesting. He's also kind of got an outside view and also is quite critical. And also to anybody again who would be like, yay Trump or yay Kennedy or yay whatever, I'm like, cool. I can understand some of it, but shouldn't especially the people that want to support those guys be especially critical and deliver all this information? Because if, let's say Trump, for example, is a savior of America or whatever, wouldn't he need the public pressure on all of these points, which due to 70 chess reasons he maybe can't bring up right now immediately, that they have such a public, real grassroots, if that even exists by today, I don't know, support for ideas which are not being discussed, for things that are not being implemented, so that he can implement them. This is what I would think of if there were a benevolent king that maybe, is cornered or whatever. But then if all the peasants, to use the word David likes to use, rise up and complain about something, then the benevolent king would have a lot more capacity to actually act on those things, which maybe he before he couldn't. If we want to go along with that storyline, which I don't necessarily do, but just saying, especially those that want to support even this administration or certain individuals, I think they should be the most critical and be the loudest voices in bringing out all the things that are not discussed or not being done properly, just as we had mentioned with the pandemic preparedness office and all of that, where already it's public knowledge that, for example, Kennedy also, even though I don't trust that guy at all, is surrounded by all kinds of strange individuals, uniparty style.
Yeah, I think there's also, to be fair, a collapsing of the old parties, both of them. The Republican Party basically collapsed in 2008 to 2012, right? 2012, you had McCain running, and again, Sarah Palin, and that was just the death of the Republican Party. And it meant that new people had to come. I remember going to the Republican convention in 2012 and 2016, the GOP, and seeing farmer boys from Idaho who were just, that was all that was left. You know, there was so little. And with the Republican Trump immersion, you could ask people like, hey, in 2016, what do you think about this idea that Trump could run for the Republicans? And you just had farmer boys, you know, and they were all like, that doesn't make sense to us. But really, what is the Republican Party? Simultaneously, you had all these Trump supporters and Trump money, Trump t-shirts coming in, and that was a renaissance for the Republican Party. Meanwhile, today the Democratic Party's collapsed. They don't have the money, right? This is what I mean by collapse. It's one thing to get $7 or $20 from a waitress like Bernie Sanders does. It's another thing to have Zionist money, right? And so at this point, the Republicans have Zionist money, and the Democrats seem to have whatever the CIA was able to build as an enemy to Zionism so they could justify Zionist money. So they have like ISIS, ISIL, you know, terrorist money. That's like they have drug cartel money, and that's all that's left. And they're trying. I mean, very quickly you can see that something is going to replace the Democratic Party, or the Democratic Party itself will need to have a. It's going to have to pivot and become a new thing, one way or another. Travis says mustache is so magnificent. That mustache could end world hunger. I agree. Shout out to Raf's mustache. It's a very nice mustache. And then also Diana says, always fun to catch live shows. Thank you, Diana. We're always happy to have you here. Cool. And then here's the surveillance, the draconian surveillance.
Yes, it's just surveillance in Palestine territories. It's a French video, but it was like cool since I also speak some French, you know, put in a French video in there just to see that. Oh, this actually TRT. This is like a, isn't it like a Turkish TV station, TRT? But yeah.
Yeah. Turkish French. And it's talking about, you know, Zionist, draconian, what do you call it? The police state that is Israel.
And the real issue, of course, being if we're not careful, you
Or
know,
Gaza.
this is coming for everybody, you know, maybe not in this way because it will be more subtle, but yeah.
Yep, technology is pretty key, and Israel's making a lot of the technology for all of the West. I don't know how big Linux is in Israel. I should actually talk to some friends because I know that they don't need it because they have access to all of the big systems. But I feel like Linux is also a backdoor for all these systems too, because like so many of the systems, Mac or Windows, are running off a Linux Apache server, you know. So
Oh yeah, that, and even here, you can't trust it, unfortunately. I mean, I'd recommend by now, honestly, almost everyone could be switching to Linux. There's almost no reason
yeah,
not
there's
to.
really not there.
Wouldn't completely trust it, especially, I mean, it's open source, so some of it should be okay. You never know what the trusted platform module on your motherboard is doing, which all modern motherboards are shipped with. And also, you never necessarily know, or definitely know, what proprietary Android installations are doing, which most
Right.
cell phones have. Here again, you can switch to something like Lineage OS or other, not saying that this will then prevent all backdoors, not at all, but at least one layer of it may be shut off by switching to these open source solutions.
I think everyone should get a USB stick and install Ubuntu on it. Like, just so you, if you've never used Linux before, just like try it because you're like all of a sudden realizing, oh my God, it's so easy to use. You got all my apps up here. You got the same kind of desktop experience. It's super clean. Right now, Raph is running this whole show on Linux. It's 2025. Stop it. Stop buying crap and just use Ubuntu. I mean, there are better options, but Ubuntu is the easiest one to just try if you've never tried anything.
Yeah, and what
before.
really anybody can do is you can download it. There's very simple instructions on how to install it on a USB, just like you said. And then what you can do is you can actually plug it into your computer.
Like a
Then
key.
I guess you have to press like delete or whatever or F12, depending on your motherboard, to choose the boot options. And then you just choose to boot from USB, and then you can have a almost full experience of it. And then if you don't like it or whatever, you just shut down the computer, you unplug it, nothing changed on your hard drive, nothing was touched on your system, and you can try it out yourself.
Yeah, there's also if people want there are 7 distributions of Linux that look like Windows. So if you're there's also Mac ones, but it already looks like Mac. So, but if you want, you can get some of these very Windows-like operating flavors of Linux, and so that way it looks the same. If you're used to Windows, you can basically just continue your life because it does exactly the same thing. And yeah, I mean, what apps are you running that you actually would need Mac or Windows for? Because pretty much every app now can run on Linux, and most of the time you're just in your browser anyway. So highly recommend just checking out Linux and realizing how freaking crazy far this free operating system has come, because it does everything. You really should just take my word for it. Okay.
And especially since, Steam, anyone who's playing any games knows about the Steam software games platform. They are developing SteamOS for their Steam Deck devices, and they actually provided, I guess, quite some development time for Wine or Proton, which is the
Yeah.
intercompatibility layer between Windows and Linux, only translating system calls and quite low overhead. And yeah, by now you can literally even play many modern games and all kinds of other apps, 3D, whatever you need. I mean, it's worthwhile checking out first if it does run, but many, many, many things actually do run, so even less reason that you would need it. And again, why in general consider switching? Because most of Linux software is based on open source, which means anyone can see the source code.
You know what they're
Makes me think
doing
of
with your
virology
system.
again.
Yeah. Or
And
voting machines. Yeah.
yeah. Whereas on Windows and Mac, even though much of it actually is based on open source in some way, at least with Mac, it's a clear history, but it's proprietary, meaning that it's just a binary code. You don't have access to the source code, and literally each and every program you have that's proprietary could be doing all kinds of things in the background, which it would be kind of difficult to find out. I mean, there are ways, but it's not that easy. Yeah, doing things you maybe wouldn't want to do, or send data and all of that. We brought up this internet privacy guy in terms of how many megabytes even does a regular Android phone, which technically is open source but has a proprietary add-on to it, is even sending on the regular. Even if you turn off notifications and whatever else, there's so much data being sent. And whilst it may not be, how should I say, a state enemy number one scenario, even just for the fact of, leeching off data for marketing or whatever, I'm fine with all of it, but I want to be asked properly. I don't want to have a 10-page end user
Right.
agreement which nobody reads.
And your
then
data plan is like your computer. So gamers will switch to Wine because it's easier on your system. Because if you have a anti-cheat check and a anti-hacking check and a IP uplink every 10 seconds, it's using your system to constantly spy on you to make sure you're, a good citizen. And that's not necessary, and especially when you need your system to run a game or something like that. So a lot of gamers will actually build Linux systems just to play Windows games so that they don't have to use Windows, which slows down the game. I mean, it's worth looking at. Also, Mythoclass asks, have you ever heard of Xanadu? If not, look it up. Project Xanadu by Ted Nelson. Of course I have. Everyone should know about Project Xanadu, the first hypertext project from Ted Nelson. It was the precursor for the World Wide Web. Actually, Open Xanadu was made available in 2014. You can actually look into Udinax, which is the what's left of it. It's definitely a really fascinating thing. Actually, I have a video on my channel from Serial Experiments Lane that talks about Xanadu. Is it all right if we play like a few minutes of that real quick?
Sure.
Just brought up. Okay, hold on. It's kind of cool. I like this. You like Serial Experiments?
On July 4th, 1947, a strange aircraft had crashed in the desert in New Mexico, America. The area was contained at once by government agents. What it actually was has yet to be proven conclusively. For now, conjecture has become fact, and rumor has become history. In 1984, an envelope arrived at the home of TV producer Jamie Shindella. The envelope, from an anonymous source, contained a roll of undeveloped film. The film contained what has now come to be known as the MJ-12 document. Roscoe Hillenkoetter, head of the CIA at the time of the Roswell incident, was at the top of the list of 12 members. It stated that these men signed a secret treaty with extraterrestrials from the spacecraft as a special organization answerable only to the president. It is now accepted that President Truman's signature was in fact a forgery, copied carefully from another document without his knowledge. Named as a member on the MJ-12 document was an MIT professor, head of the Department of Electrical Engineering, Vannevar Bush. In 1945, Vannevar Bush developed a memory expansion concept called MEMEX. It was a system whereby information recorded on microfilm was then projected directly onto a translucent screen. What he envisioned was the compression and rapid access of information. Even before the advent of computers, Vannevar Bush had already created the basis for our current multimedia explosion, while at the same time, he was leading the Manhattan Project atom bomb experiments. Conducting sensory deprivation experiments using a variety of techniques, such as Native American narcotics and isolation tanks, to probe the depths of the human unconscious, John C. Lilly believed his experiments connected him to cosmic entities by way of a broad-based communication network. Lilly dubbed the beings that were guiding him ECCO, Earth Coincidence Control Office. Soon afterwards, Lilly began work on communication with dolphins. These dolphins are incredible creatures, which are able to conduct an array of wide-range networking exercises via ultrasonic waves. Ted Nelson, a scientist who studied under the two cult pioneers Vannevar Bush and John C. Lilly, expanded on their theories. He proposed a giant electronic library in satellites in stationary orbit, which could be used at any terminal on Earth via radio and telephone lines. He called this daring concept that would make an interactive global database a reality, Xanadu, after the mythical country. Also known as the Mongolian Utopia, where all written cultures would be forever preserved and live on for all eternity. This was Xanadu. And so it was the innovative concept called hypertext that would finally make it a reality. And Ted Nelson's name would go down in history as its esteemed originator. The Earth, while orbiting the Sun, has its own specific electromagnetic waves. Between the ionosphere and the Earth's surface, there is a constant resonance at a frequency of 8 Hz in the ELF band range of frequencies. This is called the Schumann resonance. However, the extent of the effect on human subjects of these Earth brain waves that the planet constantly gives off is impossible to quantify and remains a mystery. The human population of the Earth is approaching that of the number of neurons in the brain. Douglas Rushkoff proposes that the consciousness of the Earth itself might be awakened when all humans on Earth become collectively networked and resonate at the same frequency. The evolution of the network would follow a neural model path. And just as neurons within the human brain are connected by synapses, the Earth itself would become a single neural network.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we already did this. We have as many people as neurons. It's happening. I love that, like, absolutely late 90s. Oh, here she is. Here's Lynn.
There is only one real truth and one God.
Yes, me.
Yeah.
Masami Edi, chief researcher at Tachibana General Labs, further developed the hypothesis of a worldwide neural network. His hypothesis proposed this wireless network whereby all of humanity would be plugged in at an unconscious level without the need for any technical support or ancillary device. Furthermore, he carefully encoded the Schumann resonance factor and inserted it into the 7th gen wired protocol on his own initiative. Upon discovering this, Tachibana General Labs dismissed 80. 1 week later, Masami 80's body was found alongside the tracks on the Yamanote train line.
Yep, pretty much. Crazy, right? So yeah, Xanadu, Memorex, Hyperlink, Hypertext, CERN. You know, you can go for it. There's a lot of cool stuff there. But Xanadu, someone brought up, was it connected to the movie, which is an adorable musical with Olivia Newton-John and Gene Kelly about roller skating. And I bet you on some weird, freaky, deep level that's connected to, you know, William Randolph Hearst and Citizen Kane and Xanadu. I would believe that because isn't, you know, William Randolph Hearst was pretty into metaphysical meditations. He did out of body meditations. People don't talk about that with William Randolph Hearst. Oh wait, but was Tupac a CIA plant? Because obviously, right?
Yeah, so this is something I keep coming back to. I still properly have to watch it, so let's just go on, but I just wanted to point out. And also consider Bruce McGuire's channel. He appears to be, from what I can tell, intellectually honest. Before, his channel was called Mindshock, which got deleted at about 30K. I wonder why. But he's back at it, pushing out his old stuff as premieres, still doing like logical analysis of different things, and often having very interesting comments. And even here, you see, Tupac's initial name also was Crooks. I mean, what a coincidence. Ha ha. Well, kindly
My
everyone
God,
make up
man.
your own minds.
My
It's
God,
just an
man.
aside.
There was I'm trying to find the thing I saw that related to this. I don't know if I can find it quickly enough. Might not be able to. Oh well, basically I saw something like this. Another recent like psyop media star, you know, but it's okay. I'll figure it out later. Here's mother of likely murdered OpenAI whistleblower. Oh, brutal. That's sad.
Yeah. So also here, nothing much I can talk about yet, but Tucker interviewed this guy, which I had brought up, I guess, 1 or 2 weeks ago, right? We briefly spoke about this. And yeah, at least it's getting into the public domain or whatever in terms of talking about it, but there's not much I can report on it. We can go on, but you
Here's
can briefly,
the meme I was looking for.
yeah, your screen is not showing, just so you know.
Oh, brutal. Okay, I found it. Hold on. The whole CIA lab clapped in unison when they finished making her in the lab. Sexy Red says the most romantic thing her boyfriend has ever done for her was rob someone on Valentine's Day and give her the money. Right? So yeah, same thing. All right, a billionaire planned to end America with Peter Thiel. You think so? You think he's a globalist?
Well, this has gone around. I just found it funny that someone actually made a website for this. Of course, you know, this site is, how should I say? I would claim omitting too many individuals that would be relevant. I just wanted to show that
Yeah,
there's a
Curtis
website for
Yarvin.
this.
Oh yeah, Curtis Yarvin. Come on, dude. Curtis Yarvin's cool. I like Curtis. I mean, here's the thing. There's just like this is one of those rhetoric from Take Democracy Back, and I'm not a huge fan of the take. Oh, get it together. I'm not a big fan of democracy either. I agree with virtually everything Thiel says, except for like that he thinks boys are prettier than girls. But I am no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. What's wrong with that? You can't have freedom of self-determination if you have a dictatorship that oppresses your
Well, we'd have
minority.
to ask the basic question whenever democracy, you know, was implemented in the way that it's often being portrayed as the solution, and also when we consider that virtually all parties internally have a dictatorship style structure. So it's a scam anyways from so many ends. So
And this idea, if we want to increase freedom, we want to increase the number of countries. Well, did you read Plato? Because yeah, you need to have smaller city-state republics. Obviously, like that's so True. Mordor is this technological civilization based on reason and science. Outside of Mordor, it's all sorts of mystical and environmental, and nothing works. Isn't that beautiful? I think that's true. The education of the average American has become a fool's errand. Okay, so the people saying that this guy are bad are the same people that want the Department of Education to keep stealing your money,
Of
basically.
course,
I love
of
Teal.
course, of
I'm
course.
sorry.
So this
He's
site is also just another COINTELPRO, whatever. But at least, by piecing together all of these sites, you can maybe get some idea of all of the individuals involved in,
and some
questionable
boys are prettier than
things.
girls. Maybe there's something true in the eyes of Peter Thiel. Okay, I get. You know what it is? It's that his middle name is Andreas. That's all. That's the only reason I defend him. Okay.
Fair, what can I say?
Oof,
Um,
anti-Kate.
so, oh yeah, so this
God. Oh
anybody
God.
who's interested in the Tate case can check out this channel called Gadget. I listened to quite a few of his recent publications. I think the guy makes sense. Also, always trying to show, real chat logs from the Tate internal Discord, interviewing people involved with him, showing court case documents. And the strange thing here now basically is that it appears there's even news articles about this now, where some individuals affiliated with the Trump administration may be pressuring Romanian courts to like release him or make it easier on Tate and so on. All I can say is make up your own mind by checking out some of the videos that Gadget puts out and then tell me if there's nothing to it. The best comment I had seen, but I don't think it's there anymore, somebody suggesting, and I'll paraphrase this now, because also Tate's father had these strange connections. If it wasn't some kind of family business that actually was being inherited. Um, yeah, because I mean, who's the most shady guy? And you have Tate, coming up on Sean Atwood, huge channel,
Trying to become the British Prime Minister. Yeah.
glazing each other. He's done so many scams. You also have this one very strange Trump-affiliated female lawyer who's glazing him on a Benny Johnson show. And I'm like, again, seriously, if somebody with no resources can figure out that there's something very wrong going on there, and you have all these people going on big shows and then like clapping and glazing him, I'm like, what is going on? They all, on some level, must be part of some type of club, which I'm happy not to be a part of.
You know why I can't ever do anything to defend Andrew Taint? I think it's because his name is not
Taint?
Andreas. Yeah, it's because his name is Andrew instead of Andreas, And like the Order of Andreas have subjugated the Druids long ago. So whatever. All right, The Crowd, a study of the popular mind by Gustave Le Bon.
Yes, so here what we can do is just listen in for 2 minutes at exactly 3 hours 50 or 51 minutes. 3 hours and 51 minutes. We can listen in for 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, let's get back here. Okay,
Maybe
then,
add the CC that people can also read along.
Sure.
In the genesis of prestige. Among them, success was all.
Also, what do I have to do to get the setting? Oh, I want to get the color like brighter. What do I have to do to increase the subtitle options? Font color,
is this
background
new?
opacity, window opacity, font opacity. Bring up the font to 100%.
Sweet.
Ooh, and then can I change the color to font color?
On the top. On the top. Even change the font family. Wow.
What do you think? Yellow?
I
think.
Wow.
You like yellow or
at least for readability is good, yeah.
Okay, what about monospace? Do you like that better? This is great. I've never done this. This is cool. Oh, cursive. We could make it cursive.
We can make it unreadable again.
What do you like? Do you like this one? Do you like this one?
I think the third one.
Monospace. This is
nice.
This is. I think we did the right thing. Okay, let's go back to 351. You said
special impressions of prestige. Similar examples might be brought forward in connection with all the elements of civilization. It is seen from what precedes that a number.
Wait, sorry. Memory Man wants it green, so we're gonna go back to subtitles, options, font, color, and cyan and green. Yeah, green's good. I like green. I like yellow better, but you know what? I love you, Memory Man.
Connection with all the elements of civilization. It is seen from what precedes that a number of factors may be concerned in the genesis of prestige. Among them, success was always one of the most important. Every successful man, every idea that forces itself into recognition, ceases ipso facto to be called in question. The proof that success is one of the principal stepping stones to prestige is that the disappearance of the one is almost always followed by the disappearance of the other. The hero whom the crowd acclaimed yesterday is insulted today should he have been overtaken by failure. The reaction, indeed, will be the stronger in proportion as the prestige has been great. The crowd in this case considers the fallen hero as an equal, and takes its revenge for having bowed to a superiority whose existence it no longer admits. While Robespierre was causing the execution of his colleagues and of a great number of his contemporaries, he possessed an immense prestige. When the transposition of a few votes deprived him of power, he immediately lost his prestige, and the crowd followed him to the guillotine with the self-same imprecations with which shortly before it had pursued his victims. Believers always break the statues of their former gods with every symptom of fury. Prestige lost by want of success disappears in a brief space of time. It can also be worn away, but more slowly by being subjected to discussion. This latter
I
power,
think that's good.
however, is exceedingly...
Okay.
Yeah, so just for everyone to consider, how successful do you want to be in the public eye? And yeah, the crowd is fickle, and even as Carrie Mullis said earlier, unfortunately, and it's understandable, not everyone understands the details and intricacies of everything. So success and prestige can be very fleeting, and you see this occurring and reoccurring so often with political and other types of actors, media personalities, whatever else. Something to look out for. And then for some reason, I thought again about idolatry because it relates. So I just put up there two links, basically warning against idolatry. One from the Bible, one from the Quran. You can go choose. Of course, for me, I don't claim they're books written by God. For me, they're great, interesting history books written by particular power groups for particular agendas. But it doesn't mean that they don't contain interesting insights. So if people want, they can check that out on their own time. And if you wish, we can go on to the last two main sections, which is Underground and East Turia Medea, which is a little bit about Austria to see how the microcosm reflects the macrocosm potentially.
Let me really quickly suggest people check out this Jewish cartoon, Young Abraham, which is pretty good. And you can find the whole thing online somewhere, but also you can see just like sections of it. And Young Abraham is an interesting story because it's a story of Abraham, and Abram was the son of Tariq, which is like Tartaric,
You have
and
to
he was
show
about
your
to...
screen if you want to show it.
Bummer. I was just here like talking to myself. Okay. Abraham was a baby named Abram, who's the son of this Babylonian general ruler named Tartaric, and he was supposed to be sacrificed, didn't want to sacrifice his son, or his wife didn't really more. So he has to like he steals someone else's baby to sacrifice. He sneaks his baby out, and his baby's raised in Plato's cave. You know what I mean? Like, it's not exactly, but it's basically, you can see where the Jewish Greek intermingling of ideas happened because of the exodus of the Jews into Greece and southeast Turkey. And the idea that Plato's cave is the same place where you have illusions and you start to realize that most of the gods, I think in the next video, you see he's working years later in his uncle's shop, and Abraham's uncle makes idols, right? And so every time you go down to town and you need to get a statue of a god, it's like an action figure, and you can use it to sort of, I think we talked about, was it yantras before? Guess who brought that up, everybody? That's right, Stefan. You're going to have to love him whether you want to or not. But the idea of focusing on something that can help you, I mean, this is an ancient idea of having symbolism that you can focus on. It can bring you to a place. And focusing on idols is a similar idea. A lot of people built little statues. People have crosses on their necks, and they use them like yantras to focus on a pure or a superhuman kind of value, something that's beyond what they can normally achieve on their own. And these are all symbols that come from nature, right? Like if you see a frog, you worship a frog. If you see a hippo, defend its young. You're like, wow, I want to be like her when I'm a mother. But not everybody has these symbols, especially somebody raised in Plato's cave. So this kid who's never seen the outside world is starting to wonder, like, what is the symbol of God? And he realizes God is beyond all of these symbols. I mean, not just because he's never seen them before, but that's a big part of it. He realizes that even without all of the symbols, there's still that force that exists everywhere, and that he has no control over his destiny, right? He can't guarantee he'll be alive tomorrow, or let alone in 1,000 years, right? So he has no control over his destiny. So he has to worship the unknowable, unidoled, unsymbolic God, right? That's where this all emerges. This idea that God is this tetragrammaton and all. I mean, it's very important. And so he goes and he smashes all of the idols, right? He decides, like, well, none of the idols are very valuable because, you know, they're all just symbolic of something greater. And then when his uncle's all upset, like, why did you do this? He's like, oh, I didn't do it. It was your idols. You know, the gods came alive and then they started smashing each other. And then the uncle's like, the statues did not come alive and start smashing each other. And this is an example, like David Plate would say, is like good Jewish humor, good ancient Jewish humor. This kid's messing with his uncle. He's like, well, if you know that they didn't do it and I know they didn't do it, what the hell are you selling these stupid things for? And that kind of begins this sort of process of getting rid of idols and focusing on the spiritual material. And we've taken that to such a far place because of Paul. Paul goes to Greece and he finds when you're in Greece, there's statues and there's temples everywhere for every god. You know, that way travelers can worship their gods in the city when they're trading. And there's gods of the West and there's gods of the East and there's gods of the South. There's African gods temples there, and there's even a little shrine that says the unknown God, because they're such good people, these Greeks, and they want to make sure everyone's comfortable there. So let's say that they missed one. You know, maybe the elephant god, there's probably like his cousin from like New Jersey. They have just for you your own little place where if they forgot the name of your god, the unmentioned gods can still be worshipped. You know, not because that they don't think it has a symbol, but just because we might have forgotten it. And Paul says, this is my God. My God is the unknown God, the unknowable God, you know, the God without an idol. And they're like, ooh, that's good. And so he basically commandeers all of these traveler temple sites that are designed just for people that are trading, that they're not from there and they don't know what they worship, but they're trying to be respectful of them. And he uses that to take over. And similarly, the Deuteronomists say we have to destroy all the shrines and all the altars because that is too close to idolatry. I think idolatry is you got to be very careful because it's not the same to have a talisman. It's not the same to have a superstition, yet people use idolatry in all forms. I think a bigger example of idolatry is the secret, right? And I forget who was saying this, that in prisons that they focus on teaching kids the secret. They have them read the secret to learn about, you know, positivity and mind over matter and all these things, very popular in prisons. But that idea that humans are focusing on getting more of someone else's power, like, oh, what do you want? I want more money. Well, you want more pictures of my face. Yeah, you want more pictures of my face and more pictures of that. You want a car with that guy's name on it. You've just been, that's, I think, a form of idolatry where you're trapped and you're no longer self-realizing, right? Oh, okay. And the Quran, similarly, if indeed we gave Abraham aforetime his rectitude, and we were aware of him when he said to his father and his people, what are these images and lifeless statues unto whom you pay devotion, right? So don't do it. And is this the same video about, yeah.
We got him already, yes.
Okay.
We have
and
a
Linux
new section.
Oh my
Yes.
God, we made it to the underground. Okay, let's do a little
So
underground.
this will just be very brief, so just very quickly, because I had been mentioning that there are these underground access sites. In German they call them Erdställe, which is like, I don't know, earth stables, but maybe the word actually relates to something else. They are all around Austria. I've spoken about this on other shows. We have Dr. Kusch, Unterwelten, and others. And just this channel, Steinriesen, Stone Giants, is basically a seemingly independent guy doing talks on this. Also, you know, not 100% vouching for everything here to be correct, but it's cool that there are some independent people actually investigating this and trying to check out these places, trying to read a lot, trying to visit places, and at least in some way, shape, or form, making it public. Again, relating back to the idea of the Danube civilization, which is more or less a banned topic in European academia. As I was told directly, if you want to research anything, don't ever think of calling in like that, because then you won't get any funding and you'll basically be thrown out. And this literally happened to various researchers in academia that tried to give their academic credence to the thing, where obviously something's there, right? But you're not supposed to really look at it, and you're definitely not supposed to call it Danube civilization.
We should definitely at some point, we're not going to do today, but we're going to have to talk about the Danube River and why it makes sense that there would be a culture all along the river. My God, like what kind of obviousness am I dealing with here? You didn't have roads, you had mud, and you have boats. You go from the Black Sea, where everyone's used to using boats. You know, I'm talking about north of Istanbul, south of Odessa, that Ukrainian Tartar Ashkenazi zone. Yeah, I mean, go look, follow the friggin' dots. Just connect the dots, literally. Bucharest to Belgrade, Budapest to Vienna. I mean, it's nonstop all the way into the Rhine, basically. You get to Stuttgart, well, south. You get past Dresden and Stuttgart. So there's no way to ignore that there was a culture along the Danube. I think the big concern here is that they aren't Turks. I'm not sure. Is that the reason we're not allowed to talk about it? Like, what is the reason? Is it literally because that they're not Turks? That's crazy. That's freaking crazy. I mean, at one point we talked about pseudo-Turkology, and it used to be this kind of joke, you know, pan-Turkism. And it's like, wow, everyone's Turkish. Everything comes from Turkey. Then David Ewan Jr. started doing it. And somehow, now it's just like acceptable culturally that everything is Turkish. And and God help you if you're from the Danube. I just don't get it. I haven't figured it out yet. Plot twist, not everyone from Turkey are Turkish. Yeah, basically. Okay.
Yeah, so
shout out to the
even
Kurds.
so people can check this out with translation or just look at the pictures again, because there's really not many presentations available about this in German. Again, this seems to be an independent guy, you know, showing you what he can show you. So definitely worth checking out.
Yeah. Is this in German?
This is German, yeah.
Cool, but it has actually pretty good subtitle, it looks like, as well. Sweet. So yeah, definitely watch this. Maybe we'll do a AI translation of this at some point, because it's such an interesting conversation, and I mean, there's some good stuff here. Also, hear me out. I think Dolce is connected all over the states, or Dulce, like the remake, the Hills Have Eyes movie. I honestly think that the DUMBS, the discrete underground military base bunkers, spread across the world. The top map shows mysterious cases of people vanishing without trace. The bottom map shows America's largest cave system. Derp to derp to derp. Let's see if we can get that a little bigger somehow.
I think it's okay. And then someone just commented, that's why I pulled it up. Someone said, oh, maybe the Dulce base conspiracies is not real, but the Dulcese thing is real, which is the next tab, which is like a company that also does some strange constructions or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, we should definitely look into this more. The fact that Epstein's ranch is right above the Dulce base.
Oh, is it? Oh, what is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so plant and quarry locations of Dulce, or Dulce. Oh my God, really? Interesting.
Which state is this in? Next to New Mexico? Which state is this?
This is
Texas.
Oklahoma. Isn't that Oklahoma?
Okay, Oklahoma. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I can't talk much about this. I know actually Victor Buge quite some time ago spoke about this strange correlation between cemeteries, cement plants, and, you know, people vanishing and all of that. Yeah, we don't have to go into it now, but I'm not sure if you know which video you were talking about this with him as well. I'm pretty sure. Anyways,
I don't remember which one it is, but yeah, at some point we talked about it.
Look at it on Exertus channel, look for Victor, and you will definitely find something about it. Yeah, so the pretty much, let's say, last bigger section we have, I think we can get through it, is a little bit about Austria, you know, talking of the small country, and again, only because, number one, I live there, and one of my pastimes.
And the Austro-Hungarian Empire lives on. Is the other reason.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, of course. And there's a few interesting tidbits here. So
Here's our buddy. What a nice guy who's doing so much work to help the people. I'm sorry, I can't keep a straight face.
Yeah. So what we have, and it's just curious, I
Why
mentioned
don't they
that in,
kickle? Why don't they kickle him out? Like
yeah,
just sorry.
because he wants to kick all the immigrants out, And even just recently, you had another like a very popularized knifing attack. And also here, it's not exactly clear how many of these cases actually occur, which of
I
them are
mean, I'm just saying, I was
popularized.
living in Vienna for a decent amount of time, didn't get stabbed once. I honestly felt let down. I was like, you know what? I deserve it. I'm like anybody else. I'm an American tourist. I'm loud. Like what? It's crazy how few people actually get stabbed, except for then every once in a while you're told you just can't go to a certain place in town because there's been stabbings. It's like that's always the nicest place with the best restaurants.
Yes, so I'm pulling this up because just to show this, how should I say, all the different levers you have, even within a supposed democracy, where basically this Freedom Party, which could in some ways be relatable maybe to some sort of a MAGA movement in America in certain ways, evil right wing, whatever. As I mentioned, they got the most votes. Then they were playing around. All the other parties basically, I would say, pretty much conspired to ensure that they wouldn't get into the government. And you have to imagine in Austria, it's normal. You don't have one party takes it all because you have several parties. Also, earlier somebody said, let's just vote third party. That would solve something. Good luck with that. How far
Yeah.
you gonna get before that gets infiltrated? Um,
But
but the
also
point
that's kind of
being,
the problem with the multipartisan system is even if you get a bunch of people to say, we're sick of this, you have a coalition of three parties that can take together enough to destroy the chances of some real change. So it's all designed to keep any progress from happening.
exactly. And even here, I wouldn't necessarily claim or be sure because also this guy ultimately, could be bought off or whatever, but at least, or, whatever else may happen, or infiltrated, all of that. So I don't trust any of these parties. But still, it's curious that they got the most votes. They did
Yeah.
everything not to succeed. Recently, they finally allowed him to do coalition talks, which they didn't for the first 100 days, even though he was the strongest. They just did. The president, who is my particular friend, let's say, didn't give him the order to do talks. Now they finally got him. He tried to do a coalition with the ÖVP, which basically is the People's Party, they call it, the Black Party. And the Black Party has run the Interior Ministry for decades, almost ever since the inception of the state of Austria. There's all kinds of strange shenanigans in the background, and at least on a superficial level, it very much appears as if they did everything not to allow the Freedom Party to get access to the Interior Ministry, because then just maybe, they may get access to some files or whatever. Not that they would really, publish it for the public benefit, but at the very least, the Black Party appears to me at least to be afraid that they would dig something up which then could be used against them. Um,
And all
and
over,
also,
you see all this crap everywhere you go. This is
yeah,
crazy.
you see this everywhere in Vienna, especially. It's kind of, yeah, hilarious. But I
It's
just want to
ridiculous.
point
Yeah.
out that you have so many levers that even if this vote was correct and you have a strongest party, they can still be outdone through the president and through the other coalitions. And also, what's interesting, which are the next videos I brought up, which at least on a PR level is something. Let's say this guy is the Freedom Party, one of the general secretaries. And because there was this recent knifing, now very heavily publicized, it was, I believe, a Syrian immigrant and so on. And at least because of immediately, of course, the main government is like, oh, really, this happened? Oh, people, you are scared? You want to be protected? Let's just do unconditional mass surveillance, of everyone, basically. That's what they're
Yeah.
proposing. And at the very least, the Blue Party here with this guy is pushing back on it and saying, well, if we wanted, we wouldn't need to do it for everyone. We could maybe reduce the unsolicited and in many ways illegal, if you really see it, immigration. We could take a closer look here. So at the very least, they're pushing back so far. And also it has to be said that also this guy, apparently from preliminary research, who did this knifing, already was some type of a short list of, again, some foreign secret service or something. So it's
He's
again
got a vibe.
obvious that they do everything to just use excuses for mass surveillance, and it reminds me of 2001 and 9/11. And I remember, I forgot the guy's name, but there was a project called Threadneedle or something, which was proposed to I guess, to Bush back then, which would have been a quite advanced and very selective type of surveillance. But of course, already in 2001 with the Patriot Act, that was ditched in favor of allowing laws to pass to survey everyone, you know? And at least so far, I haven't heard Trump take that back yet. And of course, you have a similar spiel going on in all countries, although it's particularly hilarious because in Austria, then they talk about, oh, what can we do to secure this and that, or to have surveillance here and there. Number one, it seems they don't really want to where it would be necessary in terms of really protecting people. And number two, from what I've heard at least, the Austrian Secret Service, of course, doesn't really have any relevant master keys. They are wholly dependent, I would guess, on Germans. And who are the Germans dependent upon? On the US. There's even the common trope by now that, which I don't know if I have the exact verification, but I wouldn't be surprised at all, that actually the German chancellor regularly, if they're not already in on it, latest by the time they get their assignment, they basically get a particular, they call it Kanzlerakte, so the chancellor's document, which basically is all the guidelines from the US, Not that the US ultimately rules anything, but this is just in terms of the states and how they are constructed, the allegiances and the tithing that goes on and the dependency that goes on. But, we can all pretend that we're also sovereign, independent states. Yeah, good luck with that.
We're gonna need some new kinds of money. And then here's gravitational telephone.
Yeah, this just very briefly. I brought this up so many times, so just because you had the Schumann resonance, I quickly posted this in the private chat for you to pull up again. Just mentioning again that here you would have a type of telephone without any electrosmog or unnecessary radiation, which is based, they call it gravitational waves, whatever it really is. But already back in 2004 or whatever, you had this guy doing a demonstration at the university in Germany with Russia, and he was able to do a call without needing any network. And even here he's saying, well, unfortunately, because the telecoms want to make money, right? This is not being implemented anywhere. But we would have this technology even in a, halfway public fashion for decades. And of course, no industry, no one cares to take a look, because you wouldn't have electrosmog, you wouldn't need the network operators, you wouldn't need to pay monthly, you would actually be able to have a direct connection to any other of these devices, and this would even work underwater and so on. So this would bring me to the next conspiracy, which I have no clue about if it's correct or not, it's just an idea, that most likely, at least on some level of military or really higher up, they are using this type of technology for sure, yeah, to actually have maybe it's even impossible to snoop on it, I don't know. But these things would exist, but of course not for the peasants, right?
There was a cool conspiracy theory I wish I could find about a Russian guy who figured out how to add, because Russian TVs didn't have channel switching; they just had the Soviet channel that they could watch.
Nice.
So I mean, it's kind of like us, right? We only have the channels that we can watch. It's not like a big difference, but
only have the YouTube front page, yeah.
Yeah, for the love of God, I literally only have the YouTube front page. I don't know if you noticed this, but the different sections it used to recommend, like news or just updated or you have new to you, all that's gone. I don't know if it's for everybody, but for my YouTube, my algorithm now is streamlined and lean, and it's only showing me crap I don't want to see. It's crazy. Like I have no reason to tune into YouTube anymore. It's a bummer. I do because I like certain YouTubers, so I have to go to my subscriptions, but I almost need a new channel that I can go to that I have limited subscriptions on, so I can see like just the one. I should have like 20 channels per different subjects or something. But I don't know if that's going to help. I mean, it's crazy. We need control of the algorithm. Where's that antitrust case? Anyway, the Russian guy built this system where he connected his television to his radio and used his radio dialer and something like that. And he connected all this stuff to it. I forget the exact deal because he was some sort of a obelisk science guy. And he ended up picking up channels, not just other channels. Like he got like European channels from Germany in Moscow, like all across. And he got channels from like Greece and Italy. But he also got his own room being recorded. He could hear he could hear everything going on, and he could hear things in other people's apartments. And then he could hear the KGB talking to each other. And eventually he got in trouble because they figured out that he had this machine that could like pick up on all of these signals. And it's some kind of similar technology because it picked up everything all around the world, essentially. Like,
Wow.
not just the signals that we're supposed to pick up.
Nice. Yeah. Scalar waves is a thing.
Scalar waves. And then
So
here's
here,
Kurt
this
from
is just two brief things. So Kurz is the ex-chancellor of Austria who basically internally couped the People's Party and did all kinds of shenanigans. And now, surprise, his company is already worth over 1 billion. He has good relations
congratulations.
to Peter Thiel, and he's doing cybersecurity. And just consider this. I mean, you have other German chancellors and also Austrian chancellors that later are really cozy buddies with either Gazprom or some great real estate things or some other strange things. But you do have quite a few that strangely are connected with cybersecurity and like US intelligence companies. So this is the career you do. After you are chancellor of a country, you get a really good deal and contract and company in cybersecurity. Of course, makes you wonder whatever relations they may already have had before or whatever deals they made during their time in office that opened these doors to them that then they would be, these great things. And it's so crazy because in all the surface level political discussions, this is never brought up that this could be an issue at all. And I have a second example with Laura Rudas. She's more of a low level comparatively, but she was like an upstart in the Socialist Party. And then also later, she started working for Palantir Technologies. And don't you know, even though Austria is so neutral, it's even quite official that we basically have a pretty, how should I say, well situated CIA listening post in, I believe, Kahlenberg or somewhere close to Vienna. There actually is a CIA spy post, and I think it's not even completely secret. So we have things like that, but still going on pretending that it's a sovereign state, which I find kind of hilarious, right? Yeah, so just to show another example that it doesn't matter which party these people are related. So here, also still going into the realm of media. So sometimes I'm watching a particular channel. There's not so many big TV channels or media companies in Austria. Also here it's highly concentrated in an oligarchy. But one of the guys is a guy by the name of Fellner. His name is Wolfgang Fellner, and his TV or whatever is oe24.at. And that's like a news site. He has a newspaper. Wolfgang Fellner, yes, exactly. And you probably don't even have a proper page for him, yeah, only as an actor. So what's interesting is this guy supposedly started to do a student's newspaper when he was 14 and then continued this and that, and now he's basically one of the media czars in Austria, seemingly independent, although there were some allegations with the Kurz era, who I just showed later now has this billion-dollar company, that he may have, how should I say, done some shenanigans in terms of ad revenue, and there's some strange text messages that showed up. It had no repercussions for him at all. But what I want to point out is he's one of the few guys that, comparatively appears independent, though I don't think he is really. But then I was like, okay, I'm just going to research this guy a bit. How do you get into this position? And then I found out who his father is. And this is the Fritz Fellner, and please check it out. He basically is apparently one of the main guys responsible for, get this, the modern history of Austria. So I don't want to use the word. I don't want to use the word starting with R, but and ending with N and having a rev in between. But it's interesting that one of the main guys responsible for history, his own son, then gets to have a media company. His media is not really dealing with history much at all.
Well, neither was Fritz, it sounds like. He's dealing with modern history. He's creating a new revisionist history, and now this guy's creating a new revisionist zeitgeist.
I'm just so glad that you said it. So I just found it very interesting that you have this connection, and then you have this commission, which is the next side of the Commission for the Modern Austrian History.
Oh boy.
Where this Fritz, his father, was heavily involved and like the head of it and all of that. Don't you say the word starting with F and ending with N? And it's not fan.
I think it's cool that I went over to Raf's house and saw his parents. They were watching Austrian TV, and I didn't completely understand how this worked, but Austria basically had state television for decades, the same way Soviet countries had their state television. the way America did in the 50s. But really, we had corporations even then.
In Austria, it lasted up until the 90s, basically, until private, so-called private televisions were allowed. And then you have guys like this Fellner guy coming along. I mean, you can make up your own mind how independent that really is.
Right. Exactly.
So this is just this commission. The next page is just the history about this commission, blah, blah, blah. You know, we don't really need to look at it, but it's just interesting because if we consider with the alternative history research that there is something going on between, let's say, I mean, with all time, but especially between 1900 and 1930 even already, you know, what happened with the supposed caliph in Germany, what David Hume Jr. is talking about, so many things. And it's just kind of curious that you have this guy who gets to do the official history, and then his son now gets to do the apparently independent, edgy media and political discussions.
Amazing,
And
right?
then the next connection here, and unfortunately, if anyone can, please do, I cannot find the link. And I looked up Fellner, it's a somewhat common name, so I'm not alleging this at all, but I stumbled across this through the next video, I think, which is Old World Architects, Fellner and Hellner, or Helmer, yeah. And they are one of those guys. If you look through the list, actually on the past page, you can look through the list of what he supposedly built, this Fellner guy. Again, I'm not alleging they are related, but they share the same name. I wouldn't be surprised if they are. So this Fellner and Helmer, they supposedly built all these super nice, even here, Kotono József Theater, Croatian Theater. They built everything, basically.
Right.
I
Didn't they
mean,
do the
if you
Budapest
can believe it.
Opera House also?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. That was the
Volkstheater
one
even,
with
you've seen it. You've seen
Yeah.
Volkstheater,
Yeah.
yes. So, I mean, can you really believe that one architect bureau is building all of these things in such a short amount of time? I would highly question that narrative.
But he's got that cool mustache, and he's got that going for him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely also check out Old World Architects, Old World Exploration, because he did some pretty good videos, actually.
Yeah, this was an interesting video for sure. And for me, it just sparked the idea because I saw the Fellner name, and then I started researching Fellner. And again, although I didn't find a direct relation in terms of family between them, at least I found this Fritz Fellner, who is responsible for modern history writing in Austria. So close enough, I think.
Right.
Yes.
And then
Yeah, we're
Adam,
almost through. So this is just an aside because, you know, as a Austrian child or even German, you know, some years ago, you're bound to watch some TV, and Endemol, you know, never mind the logo, is is one of these like super huge media
Saturn.
companies that
Is that a moon
basically,
over Saturn? Sorry, go ahead.
good question. That they basically did all these game shows, like not necessarily, I mean, it was somewhat fun, not necessarily very high quality, but doing things like, I don't know, not Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but like game shows and shows about music or whatever. And what just stuck with me is that at least in the 90s television, you very often had very popular hosts that actually you could clearly hear they have like a what would it be? Netherlands accent or something.
Yeah, Donald Duck Dutch.
And here you can see, yeah, all of the subsidiaries. And if you scroll down a bit, oh, here's this, The Fall, or even, yeah, Big Brother, Deal or No Deal, Fear Factor even. I mean, who gets licensed for that? We know that's a Joe Rogan thing, right?
Family Feud.
Wipeout, Money Drop, Family Feud, and then even more like UK or drama shows. Yeah, just
Black Mirror. Yeah, they're definitely programming you. Crazy. It's also interesting that their name looks like the name of a drug company or some sort of pharmaceutical product. Like, are you bleeding from your urethra? Try
take
Endemol.
Endemol.
Yeah,
That's right.
Side effects include alien pregnancy. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's wild. He's living in a
Oh my
friggin'
God.
clog. Okay. All right. And is Walt Disney frozen? Yes or no? I'm going to say yes, right? Like, I'm pretty convinced. He's in
Well,
Missouri.
that's good. Then I have one more interview which I found interesting about clones by Autodidactic, if anyone wants to check it out.
Was there nothing else? You have no more comments on this?
No, I have no comments. Well, the only question I would have is what really happened when these fires happened, and
So
supposedly all these Alcor frozen bodies, the transhumanist Alcor is like the way how you can supposedly.
I've always believed that he's in Marceline. So my conspiracy is that he's in Marceline, Missouri. Marceline, Missouri, if I could just show you on a map, is hold on, let me show you like how safe of a place Marceline, Missouri is on a map here. Map. Here we go. Marceline, Missouri. Okay. So here's the United States. Okay. Now let me just do another one for you really quickly. Let's look at Paris. And you're like, why is Paris so important? Well, because Paris is so far away from the Dunes de Plage, the coastline. It's a relatively safe place for museums. I think that's a fundamental reason why Paris is so valuable to people, because it's a safe place for museums. And you look at Marceline, and Marceline is in the middle of the dry section near levees and ravines and everything, so that they can avoid flooding. There is a period of flooding that happened in the 19th century because it's so close to Kansas City. That's another important thing. Kansas City is Oz, the strength, the powerful Vanadium mines of Tartaria. So he's got this perfect location here where his hometown is supposed to be. And Disney bought huge chunks of this ghost town and put in the Walt Disney Museum, the Marceline History Museum, right? I have the conspiracy theory that this is where Walt Disney is kept, because this is such a safe, not thought of place. Who's going to go there? You're going to know everyone who ends up there, and it's all underground anyway. I'm pretty sure that this is, if you were Walt Disney and you wanted to be reborn, wouldn't you want to be reborn in your hometown? That's kind of my thought on Walt Disney being a clone, or I'm sorry, frozen time. There's 2,123 people living in Marceline. Yeah, just we should look into that place sometime. I'd like to go there. Oh, and here's Autodidactic with Guy Anderson.
Yeah, I just found the interview interesting. Won't comment too much on it now. But anyone who's into that, they may want to check it out. I think they also just did another release. So if someone wants, hear people talk about the potentialities of this, may want to check it out.
MAGA Maha says that Denver used to be rumored as the new capital location, safer than Washington. Still is. Look at the cartels in Denver, right? There's a reason why the CIA, we're having a war in Denver right now, if you're paying attention.
And then we got last section.
Oh my God! Here's a guy here's Z wearing a beanie. This is a pretty good impression, actually. Sorry. Although, I just want to say, I'm a bigger and better man. Like, shout out, love to you. Tim is marrying. I think he just got married, and his kid's being born like today. So, God bless and good luck, dude. That's awesome to be married and have a kid. I hope that does really good things for your life. Okay, can you continue on with Nachika?
So here, what this is about is Nachiketa and Z just basically discussing the question whether all publicity is good publicity, because there was one, kind of famous flat Earth researcher on the show, but of course one can argue about his own background, and especially ever since this final experiment, I've spoken about it too much already. There's a huge fallout on this, and the topic is quite deep if you really want to understand it. But here, what they're basically doing is just talking about how good the performance was, and whether it makes sense, if you're a flat Earth researcher and you're sitting with guys like this with a NASA sticker on, and basically it seems like 1 versus 4 or whatever. Yeah, so
that scary neckbeard with his NASA stickers. I used to have NASA stickers, but only ironically. Okay, and then Roops Negra.
Yes.
The Black Rock.
The Black Rock. So this is a supposedly mythical phantom island. There's some information about this online. I'll have to go deeper into this.
It's a cut down Yggdrasil tree. That Black Rock is the bottom of the tree. It's a tree stump. It's a mesa.
This may be part of the question why we're not allowed to access certain areas, and why the compasses always point towards magnetic north. Could it be related to that place? I don't know, but it's an open question and it's quite interesting. And still, I'm just really looking forward to the time, if I, come to see it, where we can actually freely explore all these places and not be kept on a plantation, basically. So, and also, of course, highly curious. Wouldn't you know that it's literally called BlackRock, and the literally most important financial company is called BlackRock. And if I know anything about inversion and so on and all these psyops, then I know something is there. I can't tell you what, but most likely something is there. If basically everyone has eyes on BlackRock, but who has eyes on Rupes Nigra, So it's a nice relabeling diversion from something that may actually be more interesting ultimately than a big financial company, is, what makes my compass really turn north? What's the actual shape? How much surface area is there? Not even speaking of what could be underground and all of that, right? So here we are.
John D. Mercator says to John D. In the midst of the four countries is a whirlpool into which there is into there empty these four indrawing seas, which divide the north, and the waters rush round and descend into the earth, just as if they were pouring in through a filter tunnel. So like a whirlpool. It is 4 degrees wide on every side of the pole. That is to say 8 degrees altogether, except that right under the pole there lies a bare rock in the midst of the sea. Its circumference is almost 33 French miles, and it is all of magnetic stone. This is word for word everything that I copied out of this author Jacobus Knoyen years ago. Interesting. And then, of course, jazz music.
This
Jazz
is Guru.
Matters.
I actually showed this to you. If
Yeah.
anyone wants to listen to
Oh,
chill
right.
90s music that actually has a beat and even some decent lyrics, you want to check out Guru. And then something that was sent to me by a common friend just recently is the last one. Really good song. I don't even know. I should know in Tamil or whatever, the last tab, so next tab. And also with great animation. I briefly showed it to you at the beginning of the show, and we totally would have played it. But then again, you can't
You don't
properly
hate
monetize
jazz.
and all of
You
these
fear its
things.
lack of boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. So can you switch to the next tab? Then we can just show 5 seconds of the animation. This
Right.
song, really fun song, also dub. Just skip into the middle maybe, just for a second, just so people can see the animation style. Yeah, so also fun song, really vibing and nice. And now anytime during research when I come across new music that is somewhat decent, I put it at the end of the list. So if people want to chill out after, all this craziness, they can listen to some soothing song, hopefully, ideally, or some nice music.
Hold on, I had to drop the meme. You don't hate jazz, you fear its lack of boundaries. There we go.
Oh my God.
Okay, so then anyway, American Cave Mines, right? Oh, this ricin thing, we'll do that later. But and
I
then we
think
got
that's it. That's it from my side. Yeah, that's it. We're through.
Well, that's legit.
Congratulations.
I'm proud of us. That was good. That was a good show. I hope you guys all enjoyed that show. I thought that one turned out pretty good. I like giving you one that you don't like and then one that you love. That's kind of the, just you have to deal with it. Really quickly, I did just see this documentary on this Elvis impersonator and his brother who had a band called Double Trouble because they imagined what happened if Elvis's brother hadn't died as a stillborn twin. And so they had both of them doing music. Unfortunately, the guy became obsessed with conspiracy theories in the late 90s, and he found out that human body parts were being sold at hospitals, and he tried to present a bill in his home state, I think in Oklahoma, no, it was in Mississippi, in order to ban the sale of human body parts, all while the government around him were selling human body parts, and he couldn't stop it. And finally helicopters were swatting him, police were driving around his neighborhood, and then one day he gets arrested. SWAT team shows up at his trailer and arrests the guy and say that he tried to kill Obama with ricin. And he was world news, this terrorist Elvis impersonator. Although they were able to prove that not only did he not know what ricin was, he didn't eat rice. He had no idea what the heck was going on. And that he was as much as he was into chemtrails and conspiracies, he loved Obama. So they decided to use him as this sort of patsy for this other guy that they were setting up. Dutchkey, I think his name was. Let me just look that up. Ricin Dutchkey. I think that's how you spell it. Yeah, this freaking guy. So this guy was a politician who was friends with all of the Mississippi senators, and he was running for government. And it made it look like he framed this Paul Kevin Curtis guy. Although Paul Kevin Curtis has recently said he thinks that this was a double framing, that they framed Dutchkey and used himself, Curtis, Elvis impersonator, as the patsy because it would be so obvious, and that really this was probably something going on with Obama and the CIA. And what seems to be the case is that in a prison interview with Dutchkey, he has admitted that he worked for the CIA and that he had tapped into something he shouldn't have, and he was trying to become a senator. He said he was his his future was paved in gold as long as he kept quiet about it. But that he came out against this old man who was Senator Holland, or Representative Holland of Mississippi. And he was the undertaker and a funeral home owner involved in the body parts smuggling that Curtis had discovered, the Elvis impersonator had discovered. And so the idea that they really wanted to get rid of Dutchke, so they framed him, put him in jail for this terrorist attack, and then made a big joke about it, and then had the Elvis impersonator conspiracy theorist who was innocent going on all of these talk shows run by USAID Monarch programs. You know, he was on Colbert, you know, who's the redhead guy again? Conan O'Brien, Ellen DeGeneres. He was on USA Today. He was on CNN. He was on all these amazing. He got to do a tour around the country doing all this talk show stuff because he was an Obama supporting conspiracy theorist who was innocent. And then this guy, he ended up, you know, he's still in jail right now, right? Of course. So I don't know. Interesting story, the Ryson story. Elvis Ryson documentary. There's a new documentary on this. The Kings of Tupelo, Mississippi. And I highly recommend this one, even though it's on Netflix. I highly recommend this one because it's a true and interesting story looking at a man who was, you know, a chill Mississippi Elvis impersonator, but then he found out about he got a gateway computer and he's like, oh God, chemtrails and reptiles. And it's a beautiful story. And you can see how the people around him just decided they couldn't handle him anymore. They couldn't handle the truth. They didn't want to know the truth. And they just, check that one out. All right. Thank you for being here, Raph. You're a wonderful man.
So are you. Also, everyone in chat, everyone listening, joining, watching, enjoying. If you like the show, thank you so much. You can check out the links below, and we'll catch you for next Neuropa. Thank you so much.
Take care. Neuropa. Oh, there you go.